And a very good evening to everybody tuning in out there for this special live stream from In the Money Media. And we thank Caesars Entertainment for their sponsorship of this show. It is Breeders' Crown time as Ray Cotolo shuffling who knows what over there.
Yeah, what's up? Hi, how you doing?
It is Breeders' Crown weekend. Is the 2023 championships. First time out in Anderson, Indiana since 2020. They hosted a fantastic edition then. We'll look forward to a great edition this year. And, I'll start to my right there. That is Jacob Rheinheimer of Harrah's Hoosier Park. Jacob, welcome. And, I don't know the answer to this. A legitimate question to you. What's the weather look like this weekend?
Knock on wood, but for like the first time ever in a Breeders' Crown here at Hoosier Park, we're looking pretty good. Like Friday is going to be solid. We're looking like mid-upper 70s for Friday and then dipping down into the 50s on the evening. But looking good for Fridays. Saturday might be a little dicey here and there with rain, but we're still looking at 60s. And temperature-wise, we're looking good, just trying to get that last bit of rain out of there on Saturday.
Well, to my left there is Mike Pribozie, who was a part of that broadcast up at the Mohawk Park last year's Breeders' Crown. And he's got the Bulldog Hanover hat there on from last year's Breeders' Crown as well, right?
Yeah, it was a great time last year's Breeders' Crown, and got to see Bulldog do his thing. What will we see this year? I can't wait. It's going to be fun.
All right, bottom left, there's John Rallis from up there in Canada. He was also at last year's Breeders' Crown. 12 championship races for us this weekend, John, and we got a lot of exciting races on tap. And, you teased us earlier today, hopefully a couple of upsets maybe from you.
Yeah, hopefully we can provide some upsets. Last year's Breeders' Crown was fun, getting to be there in person, showing Mike around. I was making sure Mike got out of Mohawk okay because, he walked out with a boatload after Ammo got the job done. So I was just literally making sure that he got back to his rental car safe and sound.
We were just talking about that today. That was fun.
Yeah,
50-1, baby.
Mike, they can still hear you.
Ray Cotolo's there below me, and Ray, obviously for all the media stuff he does, I'm sure has something interesting to say about the 27 elims last weekend. Definitely a record, eliminations in every single division.
Yeah, hold on. I need to put everyone up my shirt first so I can get good audio that I don't have to touch. There we go. Yeah, 27 eliminations. Each one the same as the last, pretty much. I think the toughest thing, especially what we're going to talk about tonight, is discerning trying to glean information from those eliminations that might hint us towards some outside outcomes for a bunch of weird finals. It's always strange when it comes to Hoosier Park. I mean, without Hoosier Park, how do we have sand between my toes win and beat Tall Dark Stranger? I don't know.
Speaking of upsets upcoming this weekend, their bottom right-hand corner, Derick Giwner, the editor of DRF Harness, who has...
Wait, he's upset?
He's an esteemed voter in the top 10 poll from the Hamiltonian Society, and we know he is going to be voting for It's My Show #1 after this weekend's 3-year-old Colt Pace final.
I'm not even sure if It's My Show's in my top 10 right now. I'm still, I don't know what to do. I'm way too close to Ray Cotolo. Way too close.
I was going to say, I think that's what Derek's more upset about than anything, not long shots or anything like that. It's just there's a proximity issue on this panel already, and it's hot in here, but I'm already feeling like it's going to get heated tonight.
So his table looks nice and neat today. It looks like he's all in.
Yeah, this is incredible. I got everything. I got my color coordinated race programs. I went through each elimination, and every horse is coordinated by their elim. I got Scotch tape. I got some gas relief pills in case things get a little wild later. You know what I mean? And screwdriver. No mute button, but thankfully I have Neil Simon's autobiography for all that are wondering later on in the show. We might read an excerpt or two. Great man, Neil Simon. Bill-O-Loxy Blues, whatever that thing is called, fabulous.
So 12 championship Breeders' Crown races. Always take us a while to talk through all these races. Now a third year of doing these roundtables for the Breeders' Crown. So that's why we said earlier this afternoon, Ray Cotolo to rein it in and not the extraneous Ray-isms. So we're off to a fine start, 4 minutes in.
I have Nintendo Switch if I get bored. Or you guys just say I need to stop talking.
We will, yes, Ray, you can quit talking now as we will just jump right away into these races. So the championships on Friday, we kind of mirror the Breeders' Cup, right, for the thoroughbreds. The Future Stars Friday, the 2-year-olds on that Friday card. We have the Olders on the Saturday card, and a $40,000 guaranteed pick 4 pool starts in the 10th race on Friday. And there's a lot of other guarantees. So, Jacob, hopefully you've got the information ready for us. And, looking at the website, I know there's a lot of great hospitality tents, a lot of ticket opportunities. So, for anybody that wants to come to the Breeders' Crown, and for those of us wagering at home, give us the rundown on everything going on this weekend out there.
Yeah, so we will still have some spots on the property that will be free admission. We'll have the apron, lower level of the grandstand, as well as the terrace area in the grandstand. Those will all be free admission. With that said, if you want a guaranteed seat, we do have tickets available for the grandstand seats as well as the betting carols. And then outside, we do have that Global Tote VIP experience tent. Looking forward to that. That should be a really nice place. Emily and I were actually just down there checking it out just before I hopped on here. Really cool spot, just like we did in 2017. So looking forward to that. Still have tables available to that. In fact, I can give everyone a discount code too if they'd like it. It's a BCDC23 if you're looking for tickets out there. So that should be a really cool experience. With that said, getting to the guaranteed wagers part, we have a locked and loaded card both nights, 15 races both nights. Looking forward to that. We are going to start early both nights for us. It'll be 6 p.m. first post, both Friday and Saturday. Guarantees for the Friday night card, $10,000 guaranteed early pick 5, races 1 through 5. $20,000 guaranteed pick 4 in race 7, $40,000 guaranteed pick 4 on those 4 Breeders' Crown races starting in race 10. Then we'll end the night with the $15,000 guaranteed high 5. On Saturday night, we up it a little bit with those 8 championship races, $15,000 guaranteed early pick 5 in races 1 through 5, $20,000 pick 4 in race 7. And then we'll have a $10,000 guaranteed pick 8 on all 8 of those championship races, $40,000 pick 4 on the last 4 races of the night, $25,000 guaranteed superfecta in race 14, the open trot. Then we'll end the night with the $20,000 guaranteed Hoosier high 5 there in the open pace as we wrap up the 2023 Breeders' Crown.
So some great pools out there. And yeah, we'll talk about it when we get to the Saturday card, but the Meadows did it a couple times this year. I particularly love those 20-cent pick 8s. That might be my new favorite, lesser used wager. But race 10, Friday night, to jump right into this, $40,000 guaranteed pool on that pick 4 sequence, all 4 of the championship races that we're going to talk about right now. Starting with that 2-year-old Philly Trot Final, $700,000. And Derick Giwner, Buy Around, Draw an Impression, Warwi Michelle, they're the 3 limb winners. Now, what about Soiree Hanover? She took the bye. What do you think from experience? Is it an advantage, a disadvantage to take the bye? And she does get the rail here in the final. Derick is muted himself, we believe, maybe.
Myself. I forgot I muted myself. Anyway, what I was saying was, I think maybe years ago it might have been considered more of a disadvantage than it does now. I mean, I'd rather the horse have more than, I think it's 1 start in 6 weeks. But I think we've seen a lot of these trainers, especially the foreign trainers, who bring these horses off layoffs, like Aki Sponstead, and the horses race great off layoffs. So I don't think, I think the horses are conditioned more, in some ways, thoroughbred style now than they were years ago. So I don't think it, makes that much of a difference.
Well, that said, how are you handicapping this first championship race?
This was the toughest race of the 12 races for me.
Are you really? This one?
I went through I started with this race. I went through all of them. And then I came back to this race and I had all of them handicapped. And I was back looking at this one again, watching replays again, trying to figure out where I was going to go. I don't trust Buy Around. I think the horse needs the right trip to win. I'm not quite sure what kind of trip Soiree Hanover is going to get from the inside. I don't really love that post here. I think Drawn Impression's got a big shot, but still is a question mark. So I think there's a bunch of horses that can win. I'll cut it short and go. I went with Chap Armbro. I went back.
What?
I went with Chap Armbro. This is probably one of the few really big long shots I'm going to pick out of the 12 races. I love the elimination effort. If you go back and watch, even after the horse was passed, was still coming on at the end, stayed on very gamely, has raced well from off the pace as well. So, there's multiple styles. So it only has 4 career starts, 4 starts. So there's still, I think, some room for this horse to grow. And I just think that I don't want any favorites in this race. I want to have a long shot on my ticket, and that's the one I think has the best chance.
I'm absolutely dumbfounded because this was the very first race I looked at, and never would I have said that this horse I have a sneaking suspicion on is Derick Giwner's big bomb play. I'm amazed that we're falling in the same camp there because I saw the exact same thing. It was incredibly interesting to see, for one, Dexter put Chap Armbro on the lead because she was coming in off that tightening race at Lexington where she was racing from off the speed for the first time. And she came home okay. The only place she was bad in that race was on the last turn. And then when she got passed by Warwi Michelle, you don't really see 2-year-olds hold like she did. same time, Svanstedt put the whip away. Warwi Michelle had that race measured. So I don't really know how deeply to read that, but I'm surprised that Giwner and I are on the same page with that. I think Soiree Hanover has a good chance in this race too, but I'm of agreement that this is a race you could absolutely justify a horse like that, or even Chapellonia, who I think is going to be everyone's big wise guy horse when she was bursting through in the Elims.
Yeah, the one thing I didn't like about Chapellonia and why I didn't go that way, let's say, is because people are going to look at that and they're going to bet the horse, I think, a little bit harder because it looks like, oh, that horse is loaded and had a lot of traffic. So I didn't want to go that way. I do like Soiree Hanover. That's why I picked second in the race. I like Drawn Impression. That's why I picked third. I would definitely go a little deeper if I'm playing at pick 4 in this particular leg. But I would take a shot with Chap Armbro. I really think the horse might have more than people expect here, and people aren't going to be on the horse at all, pari-mutually.
All right, Mike, you've been critical of me towards Canadian horses, so you have to be giving me Drawn Impression in this race then, right?
I am. Absolutely. I think that she has the most talent. I think that she's going to be a bigger price than a lot of these horses. She'll definitely be bigger than the 1, the 2, the 4, I would think. And I think some of these other horses are going to take money. I think the potential's there. It's unlimited, to be honest. She was fantastic early. The Mohawk Million, you just pitched that race out. Something happened that night. She came off a 6 scratch. She was 2-1 in that race, and she decided to make a break. So if you pitch that race out, her talent is immense. I love the elimination that she shipped. She showed up. It was a slow race, but she was able to come off the pace and win easily. Really was never asked, I didn't think. She looks very good to me, and I think you're going to get a price. If you're looking for a long shot, why not the 7? I mean, you get Scott Zeron here. That's a big driver switch. She's right there with all these horses with buy around every week. He's 20-1 morning line. She can't help but get lost in this race with all these other horses inside taking money. I think she's the long shot you want in the race. I do think it's tough, but those are the 2 I like. I could see some others winning, though. I mean, there's cases to be made for other horses in the race, but and trip's going to matter. Give me Drawn Impression, though, especially above 4-1. Get Sierra Girl in that ticket somehow also.
John, will you also be following the Canadian connections?
Yeah, I think I found this race to be. I think I agree with Derick in terms of this race. I found it tricky because I do think the inside trio are just. They've all been racing exceptionally well, right? Mike touched on it with Drawn Impression. She, they went a slow half and she was able to kick home off cover, but we shouldn't really penalize buy around off that as well because she was able to, kick home pretty quick despite soft fractions and get the job done. Now, she's really done no wrong. Soiree Hanover, we've already seen her miss almost a month and get the job done in between starts, right? Most recently in Lexington. So she's definitely a filly that, especially with an inside draw, she's going to be dangerous. But, after I saw her win the Peaceful Way, I thought that she was probably the best, filly in North America was Drawn Impression. So you have to think now second start, back from a bit of a layup. I think that she's going to be a bit tighter. Luke Blake typically sends these horses ready for the big money. And, there was a little bit of urging for Louis Waugh, right? I mean, we've never really seen him ask of this filly ever in all her starts. Made a miscue, was battling sickness going to that start. They kind of made it, Luke kind of made it known to me saying, it'll be predicated if she races based on how she feels and how she draws. I have the feeling if she drew the outside, I don't know if we would have seen her in the million. She jumped it off. It was uncharacteristic of her, but I thought she responded really well, and I think that she could come back with a pretty good effort. I think that for a long shot player, I think that Chapellonia is a solid long shot play as well. I think that one, I thought that was a nice elimination effort, so she's a filly that I'm going to use underneath. But I'm going to side with the Canadian connections, and I'm going to go with Drawn Impression here.
So Jacob Mark's listening on Facebook, and he says the 5 or the 6, Chapellonia and Sharp Armbro, maybe at prices, so a couple panelists, a couple people listening out there in Facebook land. Maybe these 2 are going to take a little bit of money in here along with those inside 4.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I kind of had my thunder stolen a little bit. I thought I was going to come in here hot with Chap Armbro, but she's my top pick in here as well. I was really impressed by that effort in the elimination. That elimination was unlike any of the other eliminations where she kind of went out and did the work. She did all the heavy lifting in that mile. And like you said, I thought she kind of dug in the stretch as well. I was really impressed with that. Like you said, just 4 starts. Second start, Dexter here. Another start on behind her. I think she'll be even better. And I think now there's going to be a little bit more pace to her inside for her to kind of stalk from that 6 hole. So I really, really like Chap Armbro. Soiree Hanover, Derick kind of touched it on it there as well. The rail actually kind of concerns me here a little bit. She's a horse that doesn't show a whole lot of early speed. the rail's not ideal if you don't have early gate speed here at Hoosier Park. You can get buried in a hurry here, especially when the big money's on the line. And if you can't get out of there, you can get buried and kind of swallowed up a little bit. So I do worry about her kind of needing to shake loose up the backstretch and get the right trip worked out. For that reason, I kind of laid it on Chep Arbrough. I don't think you'll get that 15-1 price, but it'd sure be great if you did.
All right, Mike, you should be happy. I'm finally with you. We'll take draw and impression. I want to see the elim last week. Got a chance to see that. Now, second start off this little layoff, I definitely see the talent there. And I think you're right. I think we're going to see a fair price winner in this final. So that's the direction that I'll trend towards. And Chep Arbrough was, I guess, 3-1 against Warley Michelle, who's our morning line favorite, and finished second. So you have to figure that one maybe can be a little shorter of 15-1. Might be taking some money here based on the discussions we've had. But Ray Cotolo, race 11, the 2-year-old Colt and Gelding Pacers here. And Captain Albano is 4-5 on the morning line. How about Newsroom? All the way up to 8-1, who started 6 for 6, but now we've seen 2 defeats in the last 3 for him.
Yeah, this is what flummoxes me when Derick says that the 2-year-old filly trot is the hardest, because for every time the Breeders' Crown has been in Harrah's Hoosier Park, which so far it's been 2 times, you have good horses towards the end of the season, where they're at is whatever, but then you add in the fact that there's that open stretch that makes it just a charging line down that last eighth. Races unfold at this track differently than they unfold anywhere else. And to me, that's what makes handicapping these races so intriguing and potentially opens up some things to happen. But in a race like the 2-year-old Colt and Gelding Pace, this one, I have loads of question marks. For instance, Newsroom. Why does this horse, who clearly seems to have issues in the last 16th when going these hard early miles, keep going so hard to the lead? And off of that elimination where he faded to finish third and held on to third, mind you, when hunting over whatever the Bongiorno horse is. It's not hunting the last dollar, but it's like hunting for chrome, that one. That one was coming at Newsroom when it appeared he was done, and Newsroom dug in to hold him off to just make the final. So there's class there with this horse. There's speed there with this horse. I don't know what kind of trip this horse gets. I don't know what kind of trip Legendary Hanover gets from the outside, because there's a part of me that thinks James has to gun him to have a shot. The horse clearly has late speed, but that late speed, like it was in the elimination, wasn't enough for him to even get close to Captain Albano. The race seems like it's in the court for Todd McCarthy to put Captain Albano forward. And the thing that impressed me most with his elimination specifically is he didn't sit cover. He brushed to the lead. He led them around the final turn, and he strolled away under wraps. Every race we've seen him win has been off a pocket trip, and that was the first one where he did most of the dirty work and he disposed of his competition with ease. So for me, I think the tricky thing with this race is, for one, how do they beat Captain Albano? I'm not sure they do, but for two, who fits in underneath? Because Legendary Hanover is not going to play the 15-1 morning line he's on, not with that 25 and change final quarter. I feel like Newsroom has to go a different trip. I feel like they're going to try and go a more conservative route for him. And because of that, with the class that seems there, I think he's potentially live underneath. I think Captain Luke is okay also. He kept coming at Storm Shadow. He was getting crooked in the open stretch, but every time he was able to straighten, he re-engaged. And that's the kind of handiness you don't really see from a lot of 2-year-olds. So I think he's also a potentially live long shot. Does anyone here think Captain Albano can lose?
So recapping, it's like you think Captain Albano is going to win, but you like everyone else to be involved.
That's the thing, because so much of how this race unfolds depends on what these guys are going to do, and the length of that stretch at the start.
Not every race.
No, it's not every race. It's not every race, because at Hoosier, with that long stretch to the first turn, that gives guys. That makes guys more confident to try and take a shot versus like on a half-mile track. If you're at Delaware, Ohio, for example, and you like a horse to the outside, you have to have fair certainty that there's a confidence there that the horse will push to go. With this long stretch, Legendary Hanover, he could push out and take back. He could fire faster than everyone else, and that changes how this race unfolds in a second. It's tougher to map how this race goes, especially when you have horses, like I said, like Newsroom, who has been racing more aggressively than I think he wants to. No one agrees?
I don't like Newsroom at all. I think he's been his last 4 starts haven't been great. I mean, he looked dead on September 22nd, somehow found a way to win it 1-9. Then his Lexington starts were just okay as far as I was concerned. I thought his elimination was not very good. I don't want any part of him whatsoever. I don't care what kind of trip he gets because I think he's tailing off. I think that he's a terrible, I want him out of the ticket completely. I think Captain Albano is going to get bad. I mean, he's probably 3-5 in the race, and he's done very little wrong. He looks faster than these horses. He looks like he can do it any way he wants to. I don't really think that I'm trying to beat him. I'm looking more. I like Legendary Hanover. I think that they waited forever to unleash this horse last time, and he's got to be moved a little earlier. I think he can even maybe win the race depending on the trip and things like that. You're going to get a price. And then I thought Nuclear raced pretty well last week also. He's 30-1 in the morning line. I mean, he's another horse that can hit the ticket, I think, at a big number. But I want no part of Newsroom whatsoever. I really don't want Storm Shadow either. I just I don't know. I mean, it was just too perfect for him last time. I wasn't crazy about the races he came out of up in Canada. He's going to be overbetting the race also. So I'm trying to get those 2 horses out of the play.
No Universe Nuclear outfinishes Newsroom. None. Not in this
Okay,
race.
I'll play whatever. We could play horse for horse on there. You're going to give me a little odds though.
So, John, you got to bring you a task list because you said it privately. Now you got to put it in the public forum. You were critical of this morning line. You think Legendary Hanover takes a lot more money. So lay out for us in your mind how we're going to bet this race and how you're handicapping it, given what you think the odds will be.
I really think Legendary is going to go off as a second choice in this race, despite what the lines Newsroom shows in this race. I thought it was a really impressive elimination. He's arguably one of the top colts in North America. He's really been he's raced. James has really raced him conservatively all year and really gotten some really solid trips on him. I think the only drive that James probably wants back is in the Metro Pace. I think that he probably wishes he moved Legendary earlier when he did, but I don't think he thought that Sylvan was going to allow Jody to clear in that Metro Pace final. And he got a typical elimination drive last time out. He had tons of pace on the end of it. The only problem is Captain Albano was shut down halfway down the lane, and he was just, unbelievable. He's been lethal. He's been the best horse I've seen qualify. He was my favorite out of the 2-year-olds qualifying this year. He had one. His only loss was when he came off a 6 scratch. But, I think he's clearly the one to beat. I think he'll win. But you guys want to touch on the trip scenario and stuff. I don't think you want to be sitting behind Newsroom in this race, though. If Newsroom somehow finds his way to the top, I don't think you want to be behind him if you're Captain Albano, especially considering that he does tend to fall short. If those other horses find the momentum, he might be caught in in a horse that's really tiring late in the stretch, and other horses might just have to jump on him and go. I think you saw in Lexington, it's okay to follow a horse like Newsroom because the caliber of competition that he was taking on, I mean, those are clearly the 2 best horses in the race. Sitting a 2-hole trip, I mean, at the half, you figured that Captain Albano, if he's as good as he's shown off a target, he was going to get the job done. This is a much deeper group tonight with, the likes of Better is Nice with Legendary Hanover. I mean, I think Albano's clearly the one to beat, but I think if you're Todd, I think seeing that dimension of him, how good he was on the front, don't play the chance. Try and cut the smile out because I think he's got the best colt, and I hope he drives like it.
Jacob will continue throwing you the listener comments out there. Do you think the short fields and winning conditions last week had an impact on the racing, and could it lead to better prices this weekend?
Yes and no. I do we had a lot of wind last week, especially it was blowing into him down the backstretch. With that said, I do think a lot of what we saw was just elimination racing, as we've kind of discussed. I think you were going to get a lot of short field, single file racing. It's just kind of how it is in these situations. So I don't think you can necessarily pin it all on the weather. To a degree, yes, but I don't think fully you can just pin it on the weather at all.
Well, Jacob, race 11, the 2-year-old Colton Gelding Pace. Where did you land in this race?
I landed on Captain Albano in that pick 4. This would be a single for me. I just thought he was much the best in his limb. Like you said, Todd put him on the front end, and he was gone around the last turn. He could have won by as much as he wanted to. He was pretty much geared down by the wire. I just thought he was much the best. He gets the 2-hole. Like everyone's touched on with Newsroom, we saw that for the first time in that elevation race here at Hoosier Park when he came here, where I thought he was beat at the top of the stretch. And they all just kind of lined up to take their shots at him. He dug in and got there to the line. Then he just wasn't able to do that in Lexington and the Bluegrass. I think if you're looking for maybe a little bit of an outside price, I think maybe you look at Boston Rocks. I think he's one that kind of interests me, especially if we get a hot pace early. They put him on the front end as a limb. He didn't seem to like that very much. They raced him from off a helmet at Lexington, and I thought both starts there were really good, including the close finish, close runner-up to Newsroom, where he just couldn't quite get by him in the stretch. Same thing finished second to bettors, nice in the bluegrass. So I think if you're looking for a bigger price underneath, Captain Albano, if you're kind of just going that single route with him, maybe you look at Boston Rocks, but I thought Captain Albano was much the best here.
All right, Derick, Mike is listening to us on YouTube. And how about this for the bold prediction? How about Captain Luke, 0 for 9, could get his first career win in a Breeders' Crown final? That's probably something that doesn't happen too often, right?
Yeah, I think that we should be taking action from that guy. I agree with everyone else. I basically I don't see how Captain Albano is going to lose the race. I think he's been awesome just about every start. I think you can make a case that his last start was maybe his best. I mean, he was completely shut down. I think there was a lot more in the tank there, and I just don't see who's going to beat the horse here. And the problem I have more is like I don't really love anyone for second, so I don't know, who I would. I do like Legendary Hanover, but as to what he did last week, I don't know that there's going to be great value there playing a 2-9 exacta. I guess if it's paying 12 or more, it's not awful, but there's just nothing I like underneath. So I'll just key him in the pick 4, and maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get like 3 to 5. I would take 3 to 5 on Captain Albano. That's how much I like him.
You could get that.
Murray listening out on YouTube says no love for better is nice, so I guess that's the direction that he's going to go to. But so Mike, you and Ray are going to get some sort of nuclear newsroom head-to-head bet going. I want to head-to-head with John on betting odds of Newsroom versus Legendary Hanover. I think Newsroom's the clear second choice. I think they choose to come back for him. I mean, I know he's defeated. I understand from our perspective what we're saying about how he looks, but I just think people are going to look at those lines. I still think they come back for him from the rail versus Legendary. I think he takes money. And I'm with everyone else, obviously, with Captain Albano. But, I think 3 to 5 could be a realistic number only because I think newsrooms are going to take money. I think Better is Nice will take some money off of that line. Storm Shadow, I mean, we've kind of learned in the past the limb winners usually take some form of money. I mean, he was 5-2 in the favorite in a limb for a reason. And Legendary Hanover, even from the outside post, is definitely going to take some. So I think there's some money to go around in that 11th race as we'll flip our way to race 12. And, John, we'll go to you here for the 2-year-old Philly Pacers and an undefeated horse looking to stay undefeated. 9 for 9 for Geocentric and to remain undefeated in this Breeders' Crown final.
Yeah, that was probably the worst I've probably seen Geocentric, I would say, or the least impressive. But at the end of the day, she also was shut down halfway down the lane as well. But this is a much tougher group. Now she takes on all these fillies here in the final. She draws the best, but I think you have to try and go price shopping here because you think there are going to be fillies taking their shot, and Pass Line's going to take her shot. There's going to be It's a Love Thing trying to take her shot. I really thought that. I think it's all going to depend on maybe where the outside fillies get away because I really liked Blue Pacific last week in that elimination. I really thought that she was the one to beat in there. I figured Pass Line would take the most support, which she did, but never really found a seam late in the mile. I haven't seen a level of urgency from Dave Miller driving Blue Pacific, truth be told. I think that it's just been a lot of measured races for him. I mean, he's just been losing to fillies who are clearly out sprinting her. She can go quick, but she's always in a bad spot. Turning home for Lexington, the filly, whoever's on the lead, she's sitting third, and Dave pulls her top of the lane, and she just can't go by. Like, she's losing to fillies that are talented, but again, she's kind of in a disadvantageous spot, right? So I think from an outside draw, I'm going to take a shot with her for value because I really do think that this is probably a race where you want to take your shot at Geocentric. While she's the best, I still think there's some other value, and I think you can't ignore my girl EJ. I think that she's proven to be quite a nice filly. Did it off the pace last time, kicked home in sub 26. So I know they draw the outside, unfortunately, but I think those are the two you want to take a shot with, and maybe you can catch a Geocentric who's tiring a little bit maybe towards the end of the year.
Well, John, Kevin Plaucher wants in on that Legendary Hanover Newsroom odds bet, and Kevin usually loves to go against me, so that means he's probably with your side on that. So I guess I'm taking both your actions. But Mike, Geocentric, beatable?
I think so. I like my girl EJ a lot. I think that she's adding a new dimension. It seemed like she was uncontrollable maybe early this year and liked to be up front. And even, up at Woodbine, she was trying to be up close pretty much. Last time was able to sit back and forth and make a 25-3 kick. Now, obviously, Geocentric won that race and had the jump, but maybe she doesn't have the jump this time. Maybe, that my girl EJ can get that sort of trip again and be live in the lane. And you're going to have, she was 2-1 versus Geocentric last time. She's going to be 7-8-1 in this race, I think, now, especially given her post. A lot of money will come for the favorite. Pass Line will take money also. I think that Blue Pacific takes money. A lot of people saw that a little bit of trouble that she had and I think she's going to take money in the race. I think my girl EJ gets lost, and she rates a chance. Now, can she beat the favorite? I don't know, but I'm going to want her, I think, in the stretch, especially if you're getting 6-1, 7-1, 8-1 on her. She's one that can really blow up some multis, especially if you beat this horse. A lot of tickets run through the favorite here. So I like my girl EJ. And I do have a little bit of a soft spot for It's a Love Thing. I think she needs a trip. But she's 30-1 morning line. She's not impossible here. That She's a Great Lady up at Mohawk was a huge race. I mean, she was really good at that point. Last week, made an early move with her. She was bet in this elimination. Now she got tired. She needs a trip. But I think that she's interesting at a huge number if she can get that trip. So those would be my two in there.
Well, Jacob, I'm sure Ray will correct me if I'm wrong on this, but in the 2020 Breeders' Crown at Hoosier Park, I believe we have one horse undefeated on the season coming into that Breeders' Crown, and that was, of course, Party Girl Hill, who was defeated in that by Peaky Sneaky in that final. So Geocentric putting the perfect record on the line, Hoosier Park in a Breeders' Crown.
Yeah, this long stretch has definitely gotten its fair share of undefeated horses, and we saw that, as I said, with Party Girl Hill in 2020. With that said, I was actually pretty impressed by Geocentric in the elimination. I thought she was pretty dominant. I know my girl EJ was flying at her late, but I thought Timmy had Geocentric pretty well geared down by the wire. So I didn't mind that. The one I was going to be interested had they drawn better was Blue Pacific, who we talked about. At that said, she drew the 9-hole. I didn't quite like that, but she did have some pace in the stretch. She just had nowhere really to go with it. She is our track record holder here for the 2-year-old filly pacer. She set that in the Kentuckiana, that 150-2 mark, so she gets over the track well. Like I said, just from the 9-hole, I couldn't quite pull the trigger on that. I did have to go with Geocentric in here. I think she stays perfect.
Derek?
Yeah, I like Geocentric. It's interesting, hearing people say that, maybe Geocentric didn't put in her best race, but when I was talking to Tim Tetrick about the horse, he said he thought that was her best race of the year in the elimination. And
he would probably know more than us.
If you go and look, her 51-mile was faster than the 3-year-olds went on the same night. So that's something to take into consideration. I think that she's got, more in the tank than we even saw the previous week. And I think these horses are all up against it. I do think it's a quality bunch. I think Past Line, My Girl EJ, Blue Pacific are all quality horses. And, those are the 3 most likely horses to finish behind her. But I think Geocentric's going to get the job done.
Perfect Sting, Ed. Perfect Sting was undefeated and stayed undefeated when he dead heated with summa cum laude.
Well, Ray, can we get some love for Past Line? Is anybody going to talk about the other elim winner?
No, I don't like her at all. I'm surprised that this filly, who has been as explosive in the stretch that she has been up in Canada, even had to see Yannick Gingras' whip. That perturbed me on her. So that compared to Geocentric, where Timmy, if I recall, said he just had to not fall off. I think Geocentric has the advantage on that, unless Timmy's hands are feeling a little noodly and he's not going to be able to keep a good grip. I have good trust in Timmy that he'll be able to hold on. That said, I don't have really anything else extravagant to offer. Everyone saw Blue Pacific in that elimination, and John explained it the exact way I would. She has had a campaign that almost seems pointed to this race in particular. 6 starts through them. Each start, he's let her get into the race, let her chase the targets she wants to. If she doesn't get there, they're not going to overextend her. And the only issue is that post. But at the same time, that post could give a bit of a better price for a horse that otherwise is a wise guy elimination trip.
But what trip does she get here now? What trip does she get now?
That's the interesting thing, right? Because it seems like she can get off the gate a little bit, but I feel like in most cases she gets away anywhere between 5th and 7th, tries to get into the race second over. And at that point, I imagine Geocentric is probably going to be positioned forward. So it's going to be a race for second.
She's going to get parked is what's going to happen to her. That's what the problem's going to be here. There's no way they're letting her in, and she's going to get parked, and then she's going to have to go forward, and then the race blows up. That's what I think.
I don't necessarily think that is the most likely scenario.
It's not unlikely.
I agree with what you said, though, in the stretch about my girl EJ, because when it comes to a final quarter sprinter, it seems that she's probably the swiftest in the field. And I also agree with what you said about it's a love thing, because that was such an uncharacteristic performance she threw in the elimination that you could only chalk up to her being put on the lead early, and the lead being a weird place for the 2-year-olds, especially on that elimination night. It's a strange race underneath. It's one of those races where Geocentric has given herself such a high ceiling, and we're expecting her to reach some semblance of that. And with that kind of imagination, I don't know where everyone else lies in. It's a race where if anything, you'd want to try and get an exacta or something and just try and throw any of these longer price horses in for second. Any of them.
Did anyone watch the elim last week and think that my girl EJ was going to pass Gio? If there was another eighth of a mile, you really thought that she was getting to her?
But that's not the point, that she was getting there then. She could get there this time, and she's going to be a better price. Like, I mean, yeah, she wasn't getting there last week, but they're paying this week. So
to me, it's more, you look at all these horses, she can come home in 25. I think only one other horse can. So no matter where she is, she should be getting there to be involved.
And she's been close to this favorite before also. I mean, she's probably been the closest. So, and I could sit here and give 1 to 5 shots all day, but that doesn't, I mean, like, I'm trying to give prices. Like, I don't, nobody needs me to give 1 to 5 shots here. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying.
As Murray adds on YouTube, EJ was fantastic from the 8-hole Pocono a while back, and yeah, that's the direction I went to as well, behind Geocentric. I think Geocentric takes care of business. Pass line is our pretty clear second choice in the morning line. We'll see how that pans out based on our discussions here. But my girl EJ is the one that I think I'll take for second underneath based on what we've discussed here. Blue Pacific was one that I, like John, like heading into last week's limbs, but I share the same concerns with Mike. I'm not sure where our trip looks like there from post 9. I just think that girl EJ, even from the outside post as well, is just going to be a little bit more capable of getting that to ultimately work out in the end. But race 13 finishes out the Friday action. Kevin Clausen says that's the interesting thing is Ray's new catchphrase. That's the new take a shot every time Ray says the thing is late, okay? Mike, race 13, 2-year-old Colton Gelding Trot. Carl, TCI, we get the matchup we've waited for. Once again, they put on a show in Lexington. Presumably we're going to get another one Friday night.
Yeah, I'm going to go Carl. I think it's one or the other, right? The other horses seem a little overmatched. Yeah, I just think that he's going to be in front, so they'll make an early move with him. TCI, I mean, has proven that he's only lost one race. He even overcame that break in the Mohawk Million somehow. I don't know how. And I think he might be overrated because of that a little bit. But I mean, he beat Carl last time. This is not. I don't think it's a great race to bet. You probably need both of them on your tickets if you're finishing multis. If you want to get brave, I would single to one. And then, who knows? I mean, are you trying to beat one of them out of the exacta? If you do, why not the determination horse? I thought that horse raced pretty well last week. Should get a similar trip now behind those two horses battling him out. I think it's probably a version of that. So, again, not a great betting race. I'll try Carl, hoping that he's his talent, and he's the one that they have to run down. They have to chase and catch, and that'll give him the advantage.
See, now it's Carl versus TCI for most people. We keep Ray Cotolo on this panel for one reason only. I know Ray is thinking in his head, is Security Protected going to hold the lead in late stretch? Or gosh, is Wild Ticket actually going to get there and make up those 7.5 lengths from last week?
You have the right idea, but the entirely wrong scenario. But before I talk about it, I'm curious, Derick, when I sent you my horses for the DRF insert that's going to be available for Breeders' Crown picks, did you see my horses for the 2-year-old Colt Trot and go, what?
You know what? I didn't notice that particular race as being, out of whack. But what I did notice is you picked a lot more favorites than I would have expected.
I have a lot more favorites on top because, quite honestly, I give a lot of them respect on this card. And it's tough for me to gauge which ones I think are going to be able to fall. There's only one race where I feel tried and true go against the favorite. I think there are a ton of live long shots on this card. And I think this race opens the door for some because I think Carl might break. It's a wild thing to handicap and
he never has.
But he does get very steppy.
He gets incredibly steppy. And the more I watch him, the more that he reminds me of Mission Brief in every way he moves over the ground. And when you go back to that matchup he had with TCI in the stretch, the steps especially came in when he was under pressure. He faced no pressure in the elimination. He was able to carry that speed through, even though he got a little fumbly through the stretch. He got there. I think the pressure mounts in this race specifically, and the only way to make any money here is go TCI and throw some bombs in underneath. You might actually get paid trying to beat Carl out of the ticket, and there's a chance he could be as great as he is and hold everything together, because he does look like he has a lot of class to him. He was able to hold it together at Lexington. I think Greenspan comes in off an interesting elimination. He was one of the only horses gaining ground against Carl, and through his campaign, he's been sneaky. He closed well at Lexington to finish fourth behind Dame Good Time. Was seventh, but closed in 27 and change, went in a tough position in the Peter Houghton Memorial against TCI, and that was from a tough spot. He's coming into this race okay. I think situationship blasts, or at least tries to go forward from that outside post. There's a chance he's going to be like 90-1 or something like that. And in a race like this, where I'd be betting on pure chaos, you bet I'm going to throw a horse like situationship into the exacta, into the trifecta, because I think there's a realm of possibility. The worst thing that happens is that I'm wrong. I think that's an okay bet.
Jacob?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what everyone else has said. I think it's a two-horse race, and if you're looking to get creative, it can be a tough thing to do in this race. I did put PCI over Carl just because I think he's a little bit more versatile than Carl, and as I said, I think Carl gets a little bit steppy when he really needs to put the pedal down, and that makes me a little bit nervous, especially if you're coming out of these kind of tight turns here at Hoosier Park. I could see a situation where maybe Carl loses it on the front end under pressure from TCI, so I did put TCI on top. I think if you're looking to get kind of creative underneath, we do have two Indiana horses who know the Hoosier Park Oval well. One of those being Dashing Danny, who I actually really like, maybe underneath to get a piece of this. A little bit of homerism here, but with that said, Kyle Wilfong's the guy who will put a horse into play if he thinks he has any shot whatsoever. You're racing for $700,000. Why not? Jeff Colfer spent quite a bit of money to purchase this horse kind of midway through the season from the Indiana Sire Stakes. Actually got started on the Indiana Fair Circuit. He's best when he's on or near the lead. Raced huge in that super final where he just got tracked down by Muscle Fantastic late. I think he's a horse maybe you throw third or fourth in trifectas and superfectas if you're looking for a bomb underneath. But I think it's a two-horse race, and I went TCI on top.
Now, Derick, we talk about how Carl's gait has been off, and we see him kind of get a little fumbly, a little steppy there. But the past performances show, for those looking at home, TCI is the only one that's made a break, and that was, of course, the Mohawk Million Final where he made the recovery to win anyway. But is that a concern for him?
I think it's a fair point to say that TCI is the only one to show a break and Carl has it. And what's also interesting is that you listen to like trainer Nancy Tactor talk about how good his gait is, Carl. And then you watch him and you don't see as good of a gait, though I think that his gait was much better in the Breeders' Crown elimination than it was at the Red Mile. So maybe whatever it was that was bothering him has been corrected, whatever little ouchie thing he might have going on. I really can't separate Carl and TCI. I feel equally about them. I don't feel strongly about one or the other. I'm picking TCI, but not because I love him. I do like Greenspan a little bit. I think he raced well. I think there's room for improvement. Though when you read a quote from trainer Jim Campbell that says, I was going to turn him out, but I wasn't even going to race him. The owner wanted to race. It doesn't inspire me with confidence to run to the windows with the horse.
John, I was very happy to get my even money on TCI over Carl, and I think it might be that way around again. I think Carl might be the favorite, so I will once again try to cash in on my TCI money. But how'd you go in the 13th?
You know what? I think because TCI got the job done over Carl, I do think you're going to see him probably go off as the slight favorite. But, Mike touched on TCI being overrated after that Mohawk Million. See, I disagree big time after that race. I thought he was a bit overrated prior to that effort because I just kept thinking, man, this trotter's coming home in 28 seconds every week and nobody can beat him. Like, nobody's fast enough to get to him. And I just said, wait till he faces – I just kept saying, wait till he takes on Carl, wait till he takes on Carl. Well, makes a miscue in the Mohawk Million. And I said, I did overrate – he still sweeps the field. And I said, you know what? Maybe I didn't give this guy enough respect. And you guys touch on it, obviously. Carl looks like he's just ready to blow up when he gets any pressure, right? He's not the smoothest trotters. It looks like if Yannick just asks him to go, he's ready to jump it off. I will say, that break – it is fair to say because he did break, but that night I do recall Dave Miller telling me in the interview that they added a mini bit to him scoring down, and he was fussing without hanging out of a line or whatnot. So I do recall him mentioning that. So he was just fussing around. That was just one of those things where he was a bit bothered by it, and clearly it hasn't been an issue since. I'm more so interested to see the kind of trip that he gets, right? Again, I touched on it before, and I would always bring it up to Mickey Burke and Dave Miller, the back and forth about the trips that TCI would always get off the pace or cutting the mile. He's proven to be able to do both. So that's going to be the biggest thing, is what kind of trip is he going to get, especially with Carl drawing the rail, and kind of we've seen him just get a little bit steppy. Is he really going to want to push out on that first turn too hard? I'm not really sure, but I'm going to lean TCI here, and he's really done no wrong all year.
All right, well, that is our Friday business taken care of. So let's move on to Saturday. Saturday's 8th race. So the 8 championship races will be the final 8 races on the card there at Hoosier Park. We'll finish out with race 15, the open pace. But first order of business to start tonight, Jacob, in the championship races is the open mare trot. And, Jiggy Jog took a couple defeats there to MM's Dream, but she surely looked much, much better in these last 2 starts, and especially the elim last week coming into this week's final.
Yeah, it's kind of 2 mares going in 2 different directions, where it seems like Jiggy Jog's kind of rounded back to that top form that we saw early in the year when she won the Graduate. And MM's Dream, she's just kind of tailed off just slightly a little bit. It hasn't looked quite the same. MM's Dream obviously has the experience here at Hoosier Park. She swept the Indiana Sire Stakes last year, all 8 legs and the final. She took that next step from 3 to 4 and proved she's a Grand Circuit mare. And at her very best, she's one of the best mares. With that said, I think Jiggy Jog's a single in here all day to kick off that pick 8 or any other sequence you want to use her in. She was dominant in that elimination. As soon as Dexter Dunn asked her, she was gone. I got a good look at her in the winner's circle. That was the first time I'd seen her up close, and she is just as athletic and beautiful as it could be. Just everything you'd want in a trotting mare. I think she's hands down the best in here.
John, I know you said you were trying to go against favorites in this card, and you hinted that this was one that you didn't think you could go against.
No, I couldn't. Jiggy Jog just looks like, especially with the way Eminem's Dream has really raced the last, couple starts. I think that there's obviously cause for concern. She's gone some big miles, obviously. She went that big mile over at Delaware, and she hasn't really looked the same since then. Back on home turf last time out, you thought she would probably get the job done, and she got all the respect in the world. You don't want to leave a race to a sprint, right? I mean, anybody can get beat, and she got beat by Refined. But I mean, Jiggy Jog, just her brush move and just the way she opened up, she's clearly the one to beat in here. I think the only way is to just get creative with some exactas and hope that MM's Dream can get beat. Maybe a Derick Giwner. I don't think she's obviously the deepest mare, but maybe can do enough to trip herself out and just stick around. So she's probably one that I'm going to look at it, and maybe even Wari Xenia being able to kind of close for a big share. But I just don't see a scenario in which Jiggy Jog gets beat.
Well, Joe is chiming in on Facebook and says he likes Refined. I know Ray Cotolo does as well. So there's a go for the other elim winner, Ray. Refined.
Oh, man, I got Doug, my Venmo is open whenever you want to give me back that money. But look, I watched Jiggy Jog in the elimination. Refined raced fine in the elimination. She got by MM's Dream, who was coming in off a race in Lexington where she clearly wasn't 100%. I don't know if maybe the first start on Lasix, maybe she'll be better in the second start back on Lasix, or if it was just a long stretch and Refined just got. I don't know. We could conjecture all day long. I didn't even see Dexter ask Jiggy Jog. It looked like she just went without him having to tell her at all, and she did that in 25-2. She could have drawn anywhere on the gate. I don't think there's a horse even close to her echelon that is lining up on the gate, or even is the one that's behind the gate. Because let's remember, Ed, the 10 horse starts in the second tier at Harrah's Hoosier Park. I think John touched on it, where the most likely outcome where you can try and maybe make some money is to Rob Reed's just jubilation. Wari Xenia might be able to get second. I thought she looked fine. She looked good in the elimination. Tetrick really didn't ask her, and she just kept gaining ground there to finish third. She just has to be that well behaved, and maybe she can get second, because I haven't been left with any kind of positive impression on MM's Dream, but I have an inkling she's going to race better this week than she did in her elimination, but she's going to take play. And right now there's room for you to maybe make some money to go against her, because you can at least argue that she might be regressing.
So, Derick, every year, especially Breeders' Crown time, always get the thoroughbred friends, people that don't really know racing that well, that are always going to look at this program and text me and ask me, wait, isn't Refined a decent bet? Because, look, she went 4/5 of a second faster than Jiggy Jog. So give us the good, times irrelevant talk.
I don't think times are irrelevant, but I think what is relevant is class, and I don't think she has the class that Jiggy Jog has as far as, horses go. There's really not a lot to talk about here. I mean, Jiggy Jog is going to win. That's it. I'm not going to go as far as Chris Russo did on Sirius Radio and say I'm going to quit my job if Jiggy Jog loses. But Jiggy Jog's going to win this race. I mean, if you don't want to take the cold exacta with MM's Dream, which will probably pay $7 or somewhere around there, if you don't want to go that route, I like Raised by Lindy a little. I think there's an outside chance that Scott Zeron will gun out with Raised by Lindy, get into position and perhaps complete what could be a $28 exacta.
As much as I love those 20-cent pick eights, $10,000 guaranteed pool, Jiggy Jog, we're going to start with that as a single on that ticket for me, Mike, as well as most other people, it would appear.
Yeah, Derick mentioned class, and if you look back on September 9th, where Jiggy Jog was, that was the international trot for $1 million, losing to Vivid Wise. Not exactly any Vivid Wises in this race. When Jiggy Jog lost MM's Dream, really, she was given no chance the way she was driven. And you look at Refined, look at that Dayton race. Refined was 50-1 in that race. Jiggy Jog was 2-5. So I don't really think that there's any issue here with her winning. As long as she's herself, she'll win. I do like a Derick Castle a little, though, like John said, only because, she's capable if she shows up. If you look at that Delaware race on September 21st, that was a huge race that she went. She has the speed, finished second to Jiggy Jog in the elimination. The fact that she's here says that she's good. And, she's made over $1 million. I mean, she's got a lot of class to her. I think she's an interesting exacta partner, especially if you're not crazy about MM's Dream, and I'm not. I mean, she's supposed to win that race last week. Home turf, easy middle half, and she still found a way to lose. So, yeah, give me something in the exacta, like a Dare Castle. I think that you can get some value.
See, look at that, Ray. We taught Mike so much about European racing this year. He's out here talking about the international trot and European form. Taught him so much on those Swedish shows this year.
And here, I don't hear you screaming "Green Machine."
No, that's coming. That's coming.
Oh, okay.
So, Derick, race 9. Thanks, Ray. You ruined it. Race 9, the 3-year-old filly trot. The one special way, the 2 bond. The man in green, the mean machine. King Oka. Which Oka will it be?
Bond? I mean, I was kind of surprised when I saw this morning line. So Bond was 3-5, and Dietrich with special way was 5-2. I just don't see that at all. I mean, Bond could go off the favorite, but it's going to be more like 6-5 and 7-5, or even money and 6-5. I don't think there's going to be that kind of discrepancy. And if there is, you know what? If I can get 5-2 on special way, I will come off the Bond bandwagon and go onto the special way bandwagon for the 5-2 price. I think it's these two. There's really, I mean, there are other horses in here that I think could get a piece, and maybe if one of them has an issue, can do something. Heaven Hanover, I think, is an interesting horse. We've seen that she can go the type of mile that it would take to be involved here. Whether or not she can beat one of them, I don't know. Rose Run Yolanda is a horse that I could definitely see Yana gunning off the gate and trying going right to the front, and taking command early and getting a good piece of it. But I think you're looking at either Bond or Special Way. I went with Bond. I think she's been more reliable and has a better form. I mean, even last week, Special Way looked great, but she looked great at 155. Will she look just as good at 152 or 151? I need to see it before I take 7-5 on her.
Well, the other thing, too, you compare that, she got a couple taps of the whip to get going. I don't even think Ock really cued Bond that much. Just kind of went right by Rayleigh Something and zoomed away. It might have been a more contentious race, though, because you'll see Rayleigh Something adds Lasix for this race here because she had a little bit of a bleed, to which Ron Burke said, maybe she's been bleeding all along. We don't know. I think that's a fun quote. I'm kind of curious, though, with the 10 Rayleigh Something on Lasix now. I think she might be interesting underneath, as is Rose Run Yolanda, to what Derick said. From what I can gather, she 100% is leaving the gate. Going to try and sit forward and do whatever she can. So she should be live in this race. But I mean, I don't see how anyone could watch those eliminations and think Special Way is worth even 5-2 against Bond. I think you would need 5-1 on Special Way, just given what she's coming into this race off versus Bond, who has had all this time to condition and has been proving and just getting tighter and tighter with each week.
Hey, John, if you wanted to bet, I think he was the favorite, plus 600 on Victor Wembanyama to be the leading blocks in the NBA this year. He's already got one in the first 2 minutes. There you go.
It might be one of the most impactful rookies we've seen in quite some time immediately, but that's besides the point. I think that, you know what, though, like, Ray, what's the even use of maybe comparing fitness to Bond in Special Way when we've seen Oka being able to bring, you know, horses who have missed so much time and have such an immediate impact too, right? I mean, I think that they just do things differently, and I think that they're very capable of it. That being said, I mean, yeah, sure, the times weren't really, you know, you can't really compare them, but 1 mile was significantly slower, and, you know,
Why is Ray having a seizure?
John,
a nice brush move. Go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
the reason why it doesn't matter on time is because they're both Ock horses. They're both of his.
Yes.
That's why it doesn't matter.
Yeah, thanks, Captain Obvious. Okay. So, you know, I think Special Way, I think that I really liked her elimination last time out. I wasn't really high on her, and she was the best filly going into this year, and I think that she has a chance to close out the year with a big win. I think that obviously Bond has been exceptional as well. You know, I'm not going to take anything away from her. I do think that she's better racing with a target too. I think Oka's been very vocal about that. Maybe he's going to find himself on the lead as well. I just don't think that she's as good when she's cutting them out, but she very well might find herself on the front turning for home. And if Special Way has a trip off a helmet, I think that if she replicates that effort last week, I do think that maybe she's rounding it to form at the right time. I will say this. Derick did say something about Heaven Hanover. I do think that she's a live player to use underneath. I watched that elimination over several times. I never understood why she was second over, and she elected to get blind switched by Timmy. I mean, she had a chance to tip. Brian Sears had a chance to tip her off, you know, cover it and go and pick up maybe what could have been a bigger piece, if not, maybe it was the winning trip. I don't know. But that being said, I was really, I found that to be odd. I thought to myself, maybe did she not have enough in the tank? No, clearly she did. She was a solid second in that elimination. Very strange to elect to get blind switch in that spot, in my opinion. But, you know, maybe she's pressure in this final. But, you know, the 7-hole is, you know, probably not an ideal spot depending on how many of these fillies want to get away well. But I do think she's a live player underneath.
Well, Jacob, I'll have to side with Bond in this final. I think we will get better than 3-5, but I will say I like every bit of $3.30 in Special Way in that limb last week.
Yeah, I agree. Special Way is impressive. Looked like she closed from what was kind of an impossible spot from what we've seen from eliminations to that point. With that said, you know, this division was kind of turned on its head in that first turn of the first limb when Mama Mia Volo jumped it off, and then she jumped it off again in the second turn after she caught the field. Otherwise, that'd be one of the more anticipated matchups to see her and Bond go at it here. But that said, I do go with Bond. I was so impressed by how just incredibly dominant she was in that elimination last time out. Just easy as could be, 26-4 home. Made Rayleigh Something, you know, put her away easily in the stretch. And I think Rayleigh Something's probably the third best filly in this race here, at least based on the morning line. She did it just as easy as could be. And I'm kind of wondering, you know, if these two fillies, these Avokas, kind of get lined up 1-2, who's going to be the one to take them on in this division, especially, like I said, with Mama Mia Volo, Walner Payton not moving on. I do think this could be a pretty easy exacta for the Oka Sponstead stable.
And Mike, something I mention every show with these two in it, so I'll mention again now. So Bond, of course, Oka's driving. Tim Teacher picks up the Special Way drive. Oka owning part of Bond, so it wasn't even really a choice for him. He had to pick up Bond. That happened back in Lexington in the Philly Futurity. Obviously continued through the eliminations, and here they both are in this final.
It's true, but we appreciate you reminding us. And but the key to the race, which really nobody's talked about, as what sort of trip that Rayleigh Something gets. I mean, you got the second tier. She's adding Lasix. We know where she likes to race. She typically likes to be up close, and so she's second tiering behind Special Way. Where does she end up? What sort of early move does she kind of make, and what kind of pace does she inject into the race? Does she find a way to, you know, mess up the trips between the two horses? I mean, I don't really think that they're going to just walk around there and let him have this race. she's the key to the race as far as I'm concerned. She's shown talent. She has 6 wins this year. She's raced at the top level. She has speed. She's adding Lasix. I mean, she's got a lot going for her. You're going to get a price there also because I think of that post. She was 12-1 last week against Bond and did most of the work, but this is a little different. It adds dynamics to this race. It adds a little bit of a wrinkle, I think. Ultimately, I think probably one of to either Bond or Special Way win the race, but I do think Rayleigh something can shake things up, and then things could get interesting. And Heaven Hanover has proven that she's able to win a big race off a trip. Maybe if the track's playing towards the back, similar to it did Hambo Day, that she ends up with a trip, and she's shown the ability to roll past off, an elimination where she came from the back. Very similar circumstances with the Oaks, so she's not impossible, especially if really something fires this race up to a point where the closers become involved late in that long stretch. It's more interesting, I think, than just 1-2 in the race. I think you can get creative, and depending on how that trip goes for the 10, the result could get turned on its head pretty quick.
Well, next we will turn our. Well, actually, Joe on Facebook there jumps in real quick, by the way, and says he agrees that Heaven Hanover can definitely get a big piece of this. And now we'll go to race 10, the 3-year-old Philly Pace Final. And Ray Cotolo, I was waiting for the opportunity to let you start a race because I need to slip away for a couple minutes. But this is a great race to give you to kick off because I know you're going to give us a dissertation on Zanata winning that Elim, Strong Poison, Twinbee Joe Fresh, Sylvia Hanover. So you take it away. And I know I've got all day, even though I'm going to be going about 120 seconds.
I mean, those were interesting eliminations. On paper, we all thought that they were going to play fairly simply. And then Sylvia Hanover came from off the speed. Strong Poison looked like she had room to take advantage of the situation. She clearly did on a track that she set her lifetime best at in the Nadia Lobel. Aside from that, the only other note is Twinbee Joe Fresh. The quote from Chris Ryder is that he thinks that part of that performance might have had something to do with the fact that she was not well behaved in detention. So I think the curious thing with a horse like Twinbee Joe Fresh in this race, it's 24-hour detention this time around for the final. Does she behave herself there to where then she isn't expending her energy before she steps onto the racetrack? Because her drawing that outside post, I think, is one of the more interesting pieces to this race. Strong Poison, clear speed to the inside. Twinbee Joe Fresh, I think if she's going to beat Sylvia Hanover, and she's shown this all year long, she has to go forward. But if she goes forward when Strong Poison's going forward and Zanata's going forward, it seems like kind of a damned if you do and damned if you don't situation for Dunn and Ryder here. She has the speed to get strung out and maybe carry herself away. But I think that this race is guaranteed to have a strong tempo because Dunn has to go. Joey's going to go. Joey has to put Zanata in a position where she can try and get like a pocket trip or something like that. Sure, she won the 3 diamonds going first over, but this ain't the 3 diamonds, bud. She has shown herself to be so much better off a covered trip than like first over with the target. So she's got to be gunning out. I think this race then just falls into Sylvia Hanover's lap like every other one does. She came up in 25 and change. She clearly was under wraps. They kind of knew from what at least Bobby knew from the position where he was in that she wasn't going to get Strong Poison. So it was just kind of a race for second kind of game. And in a race like this now, where you're not going to be getting to the half in 57-3, I don't know how the race doesn't unfold where she just swallows them all up like she has all year long. I think the only interesting piece to it is Charleston, who makes her first start on Lasix and has time and time again fired home in like 53 back halves, 25-second final quarters, and just trying to just suck along for big checks. And I think that, if anything, she might be able to work at least some kind of trip, find her way onto the ticket. Second, third, I don't know. She's the only other horse in this race that really grabs my attention, but I don't know how this race unfolds against Sylvia at all.
Mike, I think the bettors are going to come back, in my opinion, for Sylvia and Twinbee Joe Fresh. We see morning line favoritism with Strong Poison. That's the one I know you like. I think you're going to get a fair price there.
I do like her. I don't understand the morning line at all. I don't think that has any chance of playing out that way. I don't see how Sylvia Hanover and Twinbee Joe Fresh don't get bet, more than Strong Poison does. But there's a couple things with Strong Poison and that I think she really, really likes this racetrack, and she moves way up. Her over Lexington, she's fine. Meadows, she's fine. But at this racetrack, she's produced her two best efforts so far in her life, and the addition of Lasik last time, she had no intentions of stopping. She looked fantastic, I thought, and she's going to be the third choice in here. I didn't think Sylvia got over the track quite as well as she does some other tracks, and I know that it's an elimination. I know that she's probably got the most talent, and she's phenomenal. She's only lost 4 times in her life, and she could very well win this race, and it wouldn't be that big of a surprise, but I feel like if you can isolate with a horse like Strong Poison, that's going to be the third choice, despite the morning line, you can, really spread Maltese and other places and have a chance for a score. So given the track, given the way she responded to Lasix, I do think that she has a big chance, and the price isn't going to be reflective of that. So I would probably back up with Sylvia. I'd be against Twinbee Joe Fresh in this race. I just don't like the dynamics. I don't like the price. I don't think she beats those other two horses. So I would be against her, and for definitely for Strong Poison, using Sylvia, not defensively because I think she can win it, but heavy Strong Poison for me.
So Jacob Mark on Facebook likes the 6 Charleston at Price, which Dre mentioned. And Strong Poison, that best mark of the year and the lifetime best, 148, came out at your place out there at Hoosier earlier this year, and I believe one of her first starts of the season as well.
Yeah, it was her first start of the year in that Nadia LaBelle. She couldn't have looked any better. The race set up really well for her in that Nadia LaBelle, and she kept vaulted off cover into that 148 win. But I went with her on top for all the same reasons we just said. She's going to be the third best price, and I think she's got the rail, or she does have the rail, rather. And I just think she's the one that has the most control of her own destiny. Sylvia Hanover just kind of needs things to fall her way a little bit more. And I don't quite know what to make of that effort with Twinbee Joe Fresh. We've seen that the Chris Ryder horses a little bit here in the past at Hoosier Park, where they just get a little bit of second-itis. You saw that with Party Girl Hill in 2020. Same thing with Bettor's Wish in the Breeders' Crown and in the Dan Patch here. I still remember that from 2020. So I went with Strong Poison. She's going to have more control over her own destiny. Sylvia Hanover, there's just no way for her to be involved early. And that's just what concerns me a little bit. And then you got a horse like Charleston, who's probably going to have to do it by out-sprinting Sylvia Hanover. So I couldn't quite land on her. Like I said, I like Strong Poison. She's going to be fourthly placed. Sylvia Hanover, I think she's going to be firing at the end. She'll be better than she was last week. It was kind of interesting. Emily and I went and saw her this morning, watched her jog. It's hard for her just to go out there and jog a lap and be enthused. She is very good at conserving her energy, to say the least. She is pretty laid back, a little bit lazy mare. And that kind of reflects in the way she races, but when the money's on the line, she fires towards the line. But I did go with Strong Poison on top.
Derek, I guess as many of us have, just kind of watching Sylvia race after race, it's like, oh, this is finally the one she's going to lose. Now, she's going to get there. Well, no, she's going to lose. Now, somehow she got there. This was finally the one. She doesn't actually get there.
Well, it's hard to get there when they go 57 to the half. I mean, I think at least I'll try to bring in a new point that maybe no one's brought up. To me, Sylvia Hanover is simply not a sprinter. She's more of a grinder. She takes her aim at her target and she slowly, catches on them and eventually passes them. So the race just didn't play to her favor last time. She's not a horse that's just going to be push button and go, and come charging home and blow by you, in a 24-2, It's just not going to happen. I don't think that's her style. I think clearly the race is going to, have much more pace this week than it had last week. And she just needs to be somewhat in striking range, and I certainly think McClure will have her closer to the pace this time. I think he'll put her in position, and she's my best bet on the card. I absolutely love her. I really don't see any way she loses this race.
To be fair, though, Derek, Sylvia's overcome a lot of bad trips, sort of bad setups, bad scenarios in the past, even times where she's parked herself and done a lot of things. So she's overcome adversity before, and so what's changed now? I mean, what's I realize it was an elimination, but that hasn't been an issue in the past.
I mean, I have the PP lines in front of me, the 3/4 times. Last week was 125-4. Before that, 23-2, 22-4, 21-4, 23-3, 24 flat. you're talking about a 2 seconds slower 3/4 time than she's ever had to chase into previously. That's a lot of time, 2 seconds.
And she still gained without really being urged.
No,
Like,
I mean, I'm just saying, like, she's overcome a lot of things in the past. I mean, she's proven that she's been able to overcome, and maybe they were conserving, and I mean, they seem to be doing more prep type things with her. I mean, look what they did, like at Mohawk in that overnight race and things like that. So I understand it, but I don't know. I mean, she doesn't seem quite as dominant as she once was, and that makes me think that she could be just a little more vulnerable than invincible, like she
I
was
hope
last
everyone
year.
feels like you, because that will only increase my price, because I'm all in.
You're not going to get a huge. I mean, you're not going to get a price. I mean,
you might get 4 to 5, which might not be that
If
bad.
I
that
get
be. I mean, if you
4 to 5,
like her, that's
so.
fine. But you're not. I mean, the price just. I don't know.
I think a winning price is a good price, and I think she's a winner. It's the way I feel about it. I don't.
It is
There's
interesting
no
too, though. I mean,
there's no way
because
you're
you've
going to
liked
convince
Twin
me
Joe Fresh
otherwise.
all year long too. I mean, you've been all over that horse almost all year too. So
Who, Twin Joe Fresh?
yeah.
I would say I've been more on the Sylvia bandwagon than on the Twin Joe Fresh bandwagon over the last 6 weeks or so. I don't dislike Twin Joe Fresh. I thought he raced okay. She raced okay last time. I think you know what? When you go to the set a slow half and slow 3/4, right? You open yourself up for getting caught, and I see they do it left and right all the time. Some horses are better sprinters than others, and clearly she couldn't sprint home quite as fast as Zanata can, and you open yourself up for that. If you would have opened her up a little and made Zanata, try to chase to keep up with her a little bit, she probably wins that race, in my opinion. I think that she set the race up for herself to lose, or Dexter set the race up for himself to lose.
John Murray on Facebook or on YouTube says if Sylvie has the lead at any point, she will win. That's probably a correct statement. If she gets the lead, she's probably not giving it up. So you could probably get pretty good sports betting odds on Sylvia to have the lead at some point and still to lose. That'd probably be pretty good odds, actually.
I don't think you'll ever see her on the lead, especially with her tactics. But I will say one thing about Derick touching upon a winning price, a good price. I wouldn't say that necessarily, though. I still think that even if you win, I don't think that I won't say that just because I'm not going to play results. But I will say this: you've seen this filly go against the same crop all year long and go off at 1 to 9, 1 to 5, right? If you're finally getting 4 to 5 because of one elimination loss, right? I think that's value for a filly that's pretty much been dominant in this division all year. Look, we know the formula how to beat her, right? I mean, guys have figured it out. We've touched on this numerous times. It's just that the wrong horses are doing it, right? You have to try and just put the pedal down and go and just hope that you can sprint away, go a really fast 3/4 and just pray that she tires out in the lane. But that never seems to be the case because, as Sean has mentioned in the past and Mark has mentioned, she's got great lungs. She just keeps going. Yeah, she lost an elimination. I'm not going to think of her any less in this spot, right? Ray, you touched on how many fillies are going to want to quote on leave in the spot, right? Isn't that going to bode well for Sylvia? Did we not see what she did with Preferred Mare? So, group I was working that night. I remember saying that she was an absolute fade in that spot because it was strictly just a tightener. Mark Stacey and company and Sean Stacey and company, they did not want to qualify her because their worry was that it wouldn't do her any good qualifying. They wanted her to get a nice fast mile under her belt before some of those marquee stakes races going to Lexington and such. So that was the plan. If all these fillies are leaving, doesn't that race set up for Sylvia Hanover? I couldn't agree more with you though, Ray. Twinbee Joe Fresh has to go in this spot. I mean, you have to try. I mean, but we thought that was going to be the case in other race against her, and she didn't. I mean, she thought, being behind her was going to be she's going to outsprint her. I will say this. It's interesting that you brought up that detention comment because I was of the belief that maybe she just lost interest because they were crawling. That's what I thought. I thought maybe we've seen her race so well. We saw her go, race a big mile 2 starts back at Lexington, and she was going so fast, and Dexter pretty much had her wrapped up. I mean, and it was a really fast mile. I thought maybe, sometimes we hear about good horses. I remember John Millay always telling me that when Bulldog would go slow up front, he would just lose interest. This horse just loved to work hard and do the heavy lifting. That was my thinking in the elimination with the Twinbee Joe Fresh is maybe she just does her best work when she's got the pedal down and she's going. Maybe she just loves it. But again, that comments you said about the retention is interesting. And again, share the same sentiment as Derick. You want to go fast because you don't want to bring others to a race, especially when you're of similar, of lesser caliber. That's the thing. So I have to lean. So I don't want to. pick chalk in this race, but I keep thinking that all these fillies need to buy out for early positioning, and I keep thinking that long stretch is going to bode well for Sylvia, and maybe she's not first over tonight, but if a lot of these other fillies are going to want early positioning, it might just bode well for a fresh Sylvia Hanover turning for home. And she's been the best all year. I'm not going to go against her in this spot because I haven't seen any vulnerability. And even when we have, she's still gotten it done.
As much as I've liked Sylvia all year, this is a kind of race where I kind of like Mike. Strong Poison, price is going to be correct to go that direction. We'll see how well the late sixes helped her out, how well she gets over this Hoosier Park track. I think the price is going to be significant there compared to a horse like Sylvia Hanover. So
Yannick will be laughing at you, Ray.
I will go.
Its process is entirely Sylvia should be 1-5. She's 4-5. She's dead on the board. No one likes her. She can't win if she's dead on the board at 4-5.
There's no way she's 1-5 in this race.
No, she's going to be like 3, 4 to probably even money even.
Yeah, Ed, that's a real
question. Here's the question, Ray, based on what we're discussing. What's Twinbee Joe Fresh's odds?
I as a bettor cannot fathom how she would be below 10-1 just because there's no universe where I would be betting money on her to win. People will bet money on her to win, and I don't know who these people are, but I would like to meet some.
She was 1-2 versus Sylvia a couple weeks ago.
Look, Mike, I graduated from the handicapping school of Hard Knocks, so I've taken a couple blows to my head, and I know how this race is going to unfold. And to me, if you run this race 100 times, I would argue there are maybe 10 that she wins. I don't know who these people out there are that think she could win 30 times, 40 times. I don't know. I don't know how they justify it. So I think it's a great question. What is she in this race, especially off that loss? She could be 5-1. She could be 6-1. She could be the second choice.
She's lower.
I don't know.
5, 6, 9-2. So point being, that's money for Strong Poison. And Zanata's not going to be some crazy, short price, but a limb winner, they're still going to bet a little bit there, I think, on her. So, if she's 10-1, 12-1, it's still money going away from other horses. So, but anyway, race 11, we'll move our way there. 3-year-old Colton Gelding Trotters. Derick, Help First Edition wins in a limb. Could they justify the $72,000 supplemental fee, which is why we see our final purse here is $672,000?
I mean, some people would say just the fact that you're in the final justifies the they only got back a small amount in the elimination, but it's quite a thrill to be in a Breeders' Crown final, and winning one of those trophies. Not everyone gets to win one of those trophies unless you're Ron Burke, who's won 18 of them, right there, Ray? 18?
Yeah. Yes. Second most.
I look at this race as, yes, Tactical Approach is the best horse, and it's his race to lose. But I don't see the second tier as a bad spot for him, just because he has Celebrity Bambino, Ari Ferrari, and Up Your Dale in front of him. So he has 3 really good horses in front of him to kind of set him up a little bit. So I don't really see it as a bad spot for him. But I couldn't help but, try to find some sort of a price in here. And the horse I've been on a number of times and is Air Power. And I know a couple other people like this horse. I know. Don't tell anyone. Listen, the bottom line is Air Power is as fast as any of these horses. And it's just a matter of whether Air Power decides to play ball or not. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. The good thing about Air Power is, 1, you're going to get a good price on him. And 2, the trip really doesn't matter. I firmly believe that Air Power can come first over and win the race if he's feeling good and he decides not to break. And normally if Air Power was going to be 2-1, I would say don't touch him. But here you're going to get a pretty nice price. Yeah, he's 12-1 on the morning line. I don't know. He'll be at least 8-1 in my mind, and maybe a lot more. And I think he can win. I think a lot of people are going to be on French Wine. I don't see how French Wine gets into the race. I think the horse has been racing great. I just don't know how it happens. Interesting thing on Celebrity Bambino. He had post 5 in the Hamiltonian elimination, went down the road, set soft fractions, won the race, just like he did in the Breeders' Crown elimination. Then he got post 1 in the Hamiltonian final, was handled aggressively and didn't do so well, and now we're in the same circumstance again. I don't know. Up Your Dale, great trip horse. If he gets a trip, I think he can win, but he needs the trip.
I was gonna write Air Power's name on a sheet of paper, so hopefully people wouldn't hear that he's live in this race. So instead, I just drew this frowny face because now I'm sad that everyone knows, like, the cat's out of the bag. You might as well just Let it
Think
go
about all
run
the
out in the
people who are
yard.
going to read my analysis and see that Air Power is, live.
You think your audience can read, Derick? I'm a full consensus. I mean, the thing that's beautiful about that elimination, and I think you'll agree, Derick, because you like the horse too. It looked like Matthias moved early, and he just was not worried. He knew he was going to make the final, and it was kind of just let the horse roll. Because what's weird with that long stretch is it's not optimal a lot of times to pull right at the top of the stretch. Sometimes you're better off waiting like an eighth of a mile on cover and then angling out to go. But Air Power, he can lift flight on his best day, and he wasn't really asked at all.
Did you know they had a mic on Matthias during the race, and the whole time he was, please don't make a mistake, please don't make a mistake, please don't make a mistake, please don't make a mistake.
No, that's a great point, because if I was driving him in the Kentucky Futurity, I think I'd have a heart murmur going into that Breeders' Crown elimination, which I great on Matthias also to keep that horse standing after he took that bad step in the Kentucky Futurity. But all that said, he looked great for that race being a tightener. We know what kind of horse he is. He just, for some reason, has thrown shoes, been sore, almost fall. Like, he's had everything go wrong. But like Derick said, we know how good he is. We know Celebrity Bambino is going to take money. Tactical approach. At this point, I don't think you can pull off 3 miracles in one season. Sorry, Scott. You couldn't get knock 10 in the winner's circle when I needed him. How can you get tactical approach? I don't really see how you bet anyone else in this race. Full agreement. I feel bad, though, for French Wine. Very nice horse. Doesn't have that real black type win. I think he deserves one. I don't know if he's going to get it here. He's certainly not going to be a good price, too.
He can get it here, and he'll be a price.
Nah. I don't think so.
How's he getting into the race? That's what I want to ask.
You think Air Power can get in the race? Why can't French Wine get in the race?
Yeah,
they have the exact same style. And Air Power is a Meadowlands lover. Yeah. Like,
how do you know he's a Meadowlands lover?
Outside of New Jersey, period.
He's raced 14 times.
No, Mike's
come on. Like, if you like Air Power and you don't think the French Wine get in the race, and he's racing so much better than Air Power is. I mean,
yeah, Mike's got a point there. Mike's got a big point there.
But first of all, he's starting 2 posts back. I don't know that I feel as confidently that French Wine can take air that Air Power can take. That's another thing. I think Air Power is going to be a better price. That's another thing.
Well, he might be a little better price, but it's not going to be a whole lot bigger of a price because other horses are going to take a lot more money.
If Air Power is ahead of French Wine, let's say Air Power is 3rd over and French Wine's 4th over. You see French Wine blowing by Air Power if Air Power doesn't break?
I don't know. I thought French Wine raced really well last. Like, even I thought it was driver error that got him beating the Kentucky Futurity personally. He should have won that race. But he should have. There's just no 2 ways about it. I mean, and then, last week he kicked 26-1. He was shot out of a cannon late whenever he was really given no chance whatsoever in the race. He's racing really well right now. And I think that he could be one that gets lost. I think the 5 takes money. Up Your Deo takes money. Celebrity Bambino takes money. Tactical Approach definitely takes money. And he has a puncher's chance. Just the way he's been racing, he's right there every week. What happens if he does get the trip? Because given the scenario, I like his chances of getting a trip a lot better than Air Power, who hasn't done really anything for months and months. So, yes, he has the talent, but he hasn't shown it in quite a long time. And so, I don't know. I think Air Power is a little bit phony to me. I mean,
that's why he's a long shot. That is a
good point.
But he's getting buzz, and everyone always thinks he has talent. If you look how he's always bet, he was 7-1 last in the elimination. He was 8-1 the Kentucky Futurity, really after a terrible race in the Bluegrass. I mean, he gets hammered at Meadowlands every time he's in the box.
If he's 7-1 here, I'm not betting him.
Well,
he's not a good bet at 7-1. He probably needs to be 12-1 or higher to even consider. But
what are the odds on Tactical Approach in the race? I'm curious to see how much money the 10 takes in the race because of his post. But if you look at his last 5 starts, he's been under even money in each one of them. I mean, he's won the Hambo. I mean, he's racing just as well as anybody else. So he could get lost because of the post. I don't know. I think it's a tough race. I think it could go in a lot of different ways. I think you need the spread in multis for sure.
I'll agree with you there.
Jacob, if we could have live up to the minute future book odds on the Hamiltonian, I think Air Power truly might have been approaching like even money range about the time Dexter Dunn picked up the drive. Stanley Dancer goes off at 1-5 in there, and then it's kind of been downhill for him since then. But I'm sure you've got some love for us for the Indiana Sire Stakes champion, probably.
Yeah, Held First Edition, all credit to their connections for being willing to put up that kind of money to take a shot in this race on their home turf. With that said, I do think Held First Edition is probably a notch below these top colts. He looked pretty dominant in that elim, but I think that was by far the softest of the 3 eliminations. And all credit to him. The horse is a pretty small horse, but he can take a ton of air. He just keeps going down by the wire. I just don't think he has the speed to go with horses like Celebrity Bambino or Tactical Approach in here. I did land on Celebrity Bambino. I would hope and pray for that 9-2 morning line price, but I don't think you're going to get that 9-2 morning line price at all. I think he's been red hot coming into this. The only loss in his last 4 starts coming in at Futurity, just when he had no shot, it got shuffled out of it. And still is trotting home nicely, just missed by 3/4 of length. Just won as easily as could be in that elim. French Wine is one I'd like with a better post, but that better post would probably kill his price a little bit, and I just don't see him being able to do it with Andy Miller from the 8 hole. Tactical Approach is going to get the perfect trip behind Celebrity Bambino, being able to follow him all the way around there. We do have the passing lane here at Hoosier Park, so that already kind of checks one of the boxes for Tactical Approach. That's how he likes to do it up the rail. With that said, I'm going to go Celebrity Bambino. I think it'll be a little bit better than Tactical Approach price-wise, so that's where I'll go with my top selection.
So, John, the Mark on Facebook says the 8 can be heard from. That is French Wine. Murray on YouTube agrees with Mike. French Wine is very sharp, so that's some money going that direction. But how did you go in this 11th?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just a matter of if you have to fade horses who start from the second tier. I just don't think that you can accept short prices when your nose is not on the gate. Albeit I don't think it's the worst spot for Tactical Approach, given he's likely going to get a chance to follow. But I can't say I was overly impressed with that elimination either, though, right? I mean, I understand that it was an elimination, but Air Power he only beat Air Power by like half a length in that elimination. I mean, Tactical Approach has kind of looked bionic as of late. I really expected him to kind of show a bit more pop turning for home, and was at least finish up a lot better than some of those horses coming at him. So I do think that you have to go against Tactical Approach. I think that if you're going to spread against a horse who's starting from the second tier, I know he's pulled off some miracle trips and he's arguably the best trotter coming into this race. But again, you can't accept a short price for when a horse is not doesn't have his nose on the gate. You know what? I just kind of it's boring, but I landed on Celebrity Bambino. I thought that perfect elimination drive. I thought he shut him down. Just before the wire, did Yannick. I think he's showing a bit of versatility now. I think we're starting to see that he can do it off a target, right? I think that in the Hamiltonian, he was so keen on wanting to cut the mile by virtue of where he drew and how, he felt he was good in that elimination. But I think we're starting to see how good he is off a helmet. And I don't think Yannick has to feel any pressure to want to cut this mile. I think that if he finds a target, he'll be just fine. Up Your Dale is another horse that needs a trip. I think we're all in agreement on that. But I mean, for me, it comes down to Derick. I've loved Air Power. I think that ultimately he's got the most talent, but I'm always holding my breath when he's trotting or going around a turn. I'm always worried he's going to jump it off or make a miscue. That doesn't really bode well for me when I hear Matthias Melander saying, don't make a mistake, don't make a mistake, right? I mean, that just goes to show he's not confident that he's overcome his trotting mishaps, right? So,
that was a joke, obviously.
I think I'm in agreement with Mike here. Is that I think that both Air Power and French Wine are going to get similar trips, but I just think that Air Power, despite his quirks, I think that he just got more talent. So if you're getting a better price, I think you want to side with the one who's better value. But I'm going to be boring here and go Celebrity Bambino because I like his versatility a bit. I like the kind of horse that he's kind of just always had the pedigree, always was supposed to be a good horse, but he's kind of rounding into form, I think, at the right time.
Then Matthias wouldn't actually say "don't make a break" on him. Edison, what's "don't make a break" in Swedish? Because that's what Matthias would actually be saying.
No, I think most of his communications back paddock are in English that I see at the Meadowlands.
Okay.
But, Ray, where am I going to land in this race? Speaking of Sweden.
Wait. King Oka Green Machine.
The Yonkers trot winner, Up Your Dale. Yeah. Look, the horse has enough versatility to at least be close to the pace, can work out the right trip. Defeated Canadian Trotting Classic against Celebrity Bambino, went off the favorite twice through the road. There's been some disappointing efforts from him, but I thought the elim was really sharp. 26-2 kicker. I thought he looked very solid in that effort. We've seen some good form from him in the middle part of the year, so it's kind of tough to extrapolate. Where do we go from here this week into the final? But if he can take a step forward off of that elim, Up Your Deo, I think I like. And second choice morning line, I don't think he's the second choice here. I think, or even if he is, at the very least, it's an okay-ish price. I think horses like Celebrity and Beano are going to take money. I think even Help First Edition takes some local money. I mean, again, not massive money, but 8, 9 to 1 still help everybody else's price. I'm kind of with Mike. I mean, Air Power, I still expect him to step up and win a big race like this. I think the talent is there, but he just continues to get bet every single week. I mean, did we discuss, Ray, what price are you calling fair on Air Power? What do you expect at post time?
I realistically think he could be anywhere between 12 and 15 to 1 in this race.
Mike, I think he's lower. What do you think?
Way lower.
How is he lower when every other horse closed better than him?
I don't know. But I just think
listen, I don't know.
Listen.
But he's going to be.
I'm not saying that it's going to be warranted. I'm saying that the horse takes money all the time, regardless of circumstance. So, I mean.
And Ray, I think this goes back to your discussion about the 10% thing with Tui Joe Fresh. Like, I as I said, I fully expect this horse to step up and win a big race. It could be this weekend. But if it's at 8 to 1 and you think that you run this race like 100 times, he wins like 5 of them, then it's bad value, kind of, right? Especially if you're playing him for months at a time.
This race is different. For one, there's not 7 horses in the race. There's 10. For 2, this being the final, the complexion for how this race has multitude. So there's no way that you'd see him. You saw him at 8 to 1 in the Futurity because he was 7 to 2 in the Bluegrass.
How many horses in that race? 10.
That was an okay race. But because he broke stride in the Futurity, you're going to get value on him in this final. There's no way that anyone has faith in this horse the same way they would have in the Futurity because the blemishes are there. But that's because he's going to be 12 or 15 to 1. He's going to be in a price range that is worth taking a chance on. There's no way that that anyone could bet Air Power down to 8 to 1 in this field.
All right, Ray. He's going to be lower than 12. He's going to be lower than 12 to 1. There's going to be odds bet with you. My entire weekend is going to be odds bets against people.
If I can have 5 to 2 on tactical approach, I don't care what odds Air Power is. I just take the 5 to 2 right now.
You might get that. You could get that.
I don't think you can get that.
No.
I
wouldn't take 5 to. I was gonna say I don't take 5 to. I wouldn't take any price on tactical approach. I don't think he's really a good bet here. You would need to give me a big price on him that he's not going to beat. So I'm not going to bet him.
All right, let's go to race 12, the Open Mare Pace. And Mike, I mean, I guess everyone maybe has different opinions, but for me, I thought this was maybe the toughest race. This is one where I kind of struggled to figure out exactly how I wanted to play this one.
I don't know. I think Andy Miller, I guess, is going to have a huge weekend. I don't know. I landed on Max Contract. I really, and I don't really, like, everyone thinks I like this horse all year. I'm not Garnett, and I'm not like some of these guys that like this horse, but I love that elimination. I love the way that she's rounding into this race. She looked just, I thought, phenomenal in that elimination. Coming off a 6 scratch, kicked 26 and won as she pleased. I'm not crazy about Silver Label. I know Kobe's Gigi isn't as nearly as good as she looked like last week. I hated the way Grace Hill raced in that race. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, she's been good all year, but she's going to be bet low again, and she has a bad post. And I don't know. I really liked how Max Contract raced in that elimination, how she handled the track, where she's at right now. She's proven at the top level, and I think you'll get a fair enough price. I mean, you got 2.4 to 1 last week. I would probably think around that, depending on what they do for Grace Hill here. You could get between 2 and maybe 3.5. I like that. I think she's a strong horse in multis for me. I'd be leaning on her heavily.
All right, I'm thinking I might have the same opinion as John. John, where'd you go in the 12?
I just of the belief that I don't think Grace Hill necessarily draws bad. I think the 8 hole's fine for that mare. We saw her get the job done from the 9 hole that day, and I think any draw on the gate is just fine for her. The question is what kind of trip is Dougie going to give her? Because I do think that she's better when she kind of has a target. We've seen her have success when she has cut them out. I think that she's obviously stole a few races. She won a Breeders' Crown last year by virtue of the way Dougie drove her and was able to steal it over Test of Faith. I'm kind of the belief, though, too, Mike. I really like the way Max Contract's coming into this race. I think that she's sharp. I think that she was always a wise guy mare. Everybody would always race her, but she never really had that same kick. And here we are, 3 starts going to this final, and she's looked really strong. And, the first race that she looked good doing so was over here at Hoosier Park in the Open. a couple starts back. So I like the way that she had a couple tighteners, against groups that she probably should have got the job done, but she's looked really sharp. That was a nice elimination when, despite missing time, being a 6 scratch. I think that maybe the only other one I could really maybe take a shot with, I know she's going to take support, is Kobe's Gigi. I mean, she really did some work in that elimination, right? Was used twice early in that mile, was able to open up. I think that maybe you take a shot with Grace Hill and just kind of hope that you can beat her with the price. I think those are obviously the two logical ones, but max contract, she's going to be heard from late, and she might have the freshest legs.
You're not at all worried with how Kobe's Gigi finished that mile, because that was the first time I'd ever seen her like wandering in the stretch, and I didn't think that was kind of race. Yeah,
that was a weird race.
I didn't think that was a kind of race where just with the kind of speed she's shown herself capable of and the strength she's shown herself to be capable of, that being a race where she would get lost like that and be going left and right. Of course, Jacob would probably have more information on where the winds might have been blowing at that point. And Jacob, do you remember if the winds were still kind of at the back stretch when Kobe's Gigi raced in her elimination?
I believe so. Yeah, I'd go with
Okay.
that.
Then that makes it even more peculiar of why she was so all over the place. She still held on because she's got class, but does that not worry you at all, John? Especially when you watch Max Contract put in a visually impressive win in her elimination?
Well, it worries me. I just think that they're probably the two logical contenders.
Okay.
I'm on team Max Contract here because I do think that there's a good chance she has the freshest legs late. I'm not really worried about the poster Grace, so that's the biggest thing for me. It just I don't even know to be concerned about that effort. I think that it was just one of those, just get into the final. Again, I think they're not worried at all about where they draw because she's shown that she can get away just fine. I mean, it's not like this is a race where everybody's going to want to show her respect. It's not like everybody's going to be gunning out, wanting to cut the smile. And I think Dougie's perfectly fine with wherever she gets away. So I wouldn't be concerned about post. I just think that I think her best shot is maybe to find a target. So it's going to be interesting to see what approach Dougie takes.
Oh, guess of death. I like Max Contract too. I don't.
Hey, but Ray, look at the YouTube comment from Murray. He has the correct answer in this race. Michaela, 10-1 with the minister.
I'm not opposed to Michaela either.
There's my kiss of death.
But Max, of the two mare pace eliminations, the only horse that popped out to me that had any sort of oomph at the end was Max Contract. Everyone else finished the race fine, but they didn't have that kind of eye-catching muscle that Max Contract had in that last eighth of a mile when she was shut down to win by 2, especially being off a 6 scratch. So that joined also with just the form she'd been showing over the last few weeks, with Andy saying, I wish she didn't get sick so we could have raced her in Lexington. That's an interesting line to say. Of course, let's also remember, everyone thinks they have a 46 pacer nowadays because these horses are so damn fast. But all that aside, Max Contract is the only horse, just looking at the eliminations alone, I feel is live in the final. Grace Hill, I've seen how she can fire home. That's not the Grace Hill I remember. That's a Grace Hill that wasn't firing at 100%. If I remember correctly, I think Virgil Morgan said that she wasn't 100%, or like he said something after the race too, that they might tinker with something going into the final, equipment or whatever, because she usually can be more active than that, despite coming in with 26 seconds. I don't know what kind of trip she gets from that outside post. That's the big monkey wrench. And to me, I think God bless. Michaela is the only horse I can think of where I go, thank God she drew the second tier, because George, you can't put her on the lead. She's going to be better with the target. That's what lost her the race in the elimination, I feel, was her going to the front. He was confident in her, put her in the place where you'd put the best horse in the race. And she wasn't the best horse in the race that day, but still held on to finish second, held off everyone coming at her. George is forced to come from off the speed here unless he, for some reason, makes a quarter move to the lead, which I can't envision happening. But God bless the second tier draw for Michaela, because now she's a live long shot in this race.
Jacob, you can make a lot of money on Max Contract, just $100 to win in every race, because there's a 19-1 upset, a 10-1 upset, a 18-1 upset, and there's still like 11 other wins to account for. So I guess you're making money if you're just betting Max Contract every race.
Yeah, well, the problem is that she's won every race that I didn't bet her. She's been one of those mares that I rode all summer long in some of those big stakes, thinking she was going to break through, and she just never did for me. With that said, I did land on Grace Hill. I just trust her more than Max Contract, and the 8-hole really doesn't scare me from her, and I really wasn't that scared by the elimination. I thought they just got away towards the back. I wasn't disappointed in the 26 home. I know we've seen better from her, but I just wasn't scared off by that elimination at all. That just looked like a classic case of elimination racing to me. Got into the final. She drew post 8 at Dayton too. I think that's a much worse spot than the 8-hole here at Hoosier. I think she can kind of wait patiently for things to kind of settle in the first turn and then make her move like we've seen all year long. Kobe Gigi's interesting. She's a mare that came back to Hoosier Park after racing on the Grand Circuit this summer. Didn't do much this summer. Wasn't very good when she got back here to Hoosier either for a while. Then for whatever reason, when she went down to Lexington, she kind of found herself again. I do know they made a rigging change even after that Indiana Sire Stakes mare final where she won from the 9-hole. That was against a pretty bad bunch of mares, to be perfectly honest. But then she jumped up in the Breeders' Crown a limb, went right down the road. I know they said that she was shut down kind of halfway down the lane. That might explain the wandering a little bit, but they're very, very competent in Kobe's Gigi. With that said, I just think Grace Hill's the better mare, and I think she's kind of proven that all year long.
Derick?
I'm going to rain on everyone's parade. I hate Max Contract.
Why?
Hate Max Contract. Because she's going to be way over bet, and she's beaten no one. She had a great trip last week, and everything worked out perfect for her. The two wins before that, yeah, they look great on paper. She beat no one. Zero.
She did it in fast time. She was kicking home from tough spots. I mean,
let's see how she kicks home, versus Grace Hill and some of these other horses in here. I don't like her at all. I just don't care for her. The rail's not the best starting spot. For so many reasons, I don't like Max Contract. I'm not saying she can't win. Of course, she could win, but I don't think you're going to get any kind of a good price on her. I think the price is going to be worse than it's definitely going to be an underlaid price, for certain. I'm not saying that it's going to be you might think that 7-2 is great, but I don't think 7-2 is a great price on her. If I was going to pick a long shot in here, I would take a shot with Silver Label, who's, 15-1 on the morning line. And while I don't think she's quite as sharp as maybe she was, earlier this year, she has proven that she can step up on occasion. She's got a good post where she can save ground and maybe make a late kick. So if I was going to take a price, that's where I would go. I like Michaela a little bit as well. I think they were speed tightening her last week to get her sharp. She had missed a few weeks. I think she probably needed that start, and that was their way of, saying, let's get her into race shape. I think I have a completely different view of the elimination than everyone else. I thought Grace Hill was absolutely loaded. I think you watch, Dougie goes and he pops the plugs, and she didn't really respond, and then he tapped her with the whip a couple of times, and you could see her leg motion kind of accelerates. To me, she was coming home really strong. She came home at 26, but I think the final, 16th or whatever was much faster than, the first 16th or first 8th of the stretch. I really like Grace Hill in this spot. I think she's, probably going to be pointed towards the lead and certainly going to be leaving the gate strong. And I might use, I don't know if I'm going to use Max Contract at all, quite frankly.
Well, I wonder if the bridge jumper thought that she was loaded the way she was driven in that race because, I don't know. I mean, that didn't scream loaded to me. I know that.
You had to be two horses. She had to be two horses to make the final. She knew she was going to be two horses.
I just don't know how you can, for me, it's one of those things you could justify and say, maybe Silver Label didn't get her trip. We've seen her be better when she has a target on the front, but she sat a 2-hole trip and she was gapping. I mean, for me, Silver Label's just not coming into this race.
Yeah, I don't want her at all either.
She had missed a few weeks.
Nick Nicolucci has, he's mentioned how she's had dealing with some stomach ulcers. She's literally going to this Breeders' Crown. He was more optimistic about Prohibition Legal standing in the winner's circle than he was Silver Label. Whereas earlier in the summer, for him, it seemed like it was all Silver Label. So it's unfortunately for him now, we don't get to see Prohibition Legal into the final because she was scratched.
It's a fair point, John. But the way I look at it is, if I'm going to get 15 or 17 or 18-1, I would consider using that horse on my ticket versus, Max Contract, who I know is going to be a less than I want price.
The way
if I was going to bet Max Contract, I want at least 6-1, and I know the horse is going to be way lower than 6-1.
You're not going to get 6-1. Be lucky to get 3.
the way I look at it though as well is, I mean, I think that you're right that Max contract's gonna get bet. I do agree with you on the elimination. I'm not really worried per se about whether Grace Hill was loaded. I do think that though there's also the notion of if you're getting price X on horse X because of you think it's a 2-horse race, I still think that there's value there. I'm not saying that you want to accept a uh, Max contract's going to take more support. There's a good chance she's second choice in this race between her and Kobe's Gigi. But I mean, if you think that she's a logical contender and she's the next one, I think that I don't think that all these other mares are going to cancel each other out. I just don't think anybody's done anything to prove that, hey, I'm the next one. I think you're going to see a pretty evenly bet race if Prohibition Legal was in this final, and that's probably one I would have sided with, assuming she put forth a good elimination. I think it's going to be lopsided support for Grace Hill, justifiably so, because she's been dominant in this division all year. It's just a matter of we've also seen her throw in some clunkers despite taking a lot of support, so it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out.
I'd rather take a shot with Michaela if I was going to take a shot with a horse to beat Grace Hill than take a shot with Max Contract.
You'd be better doing that than with Silver Label.
Well, I'm just saying, Silver Label to me is like a bomb. Hey, I'll throw in Silver Label. Maybe she'll get lucky and have it. But to me, if I'm just saying, who do I think can really win this race? I think Grace Hill is up here. And then I have Michaela. And then below that is a bunch of them. Like, I think Max Contract, Silver Label, Kobe's Gigi, I would take either. To me, they're all the same. And the price of Max Contract is going to be, lower than those, I think.
I will say this quickly, Silver Label, I'm not really worried about the time off. I mean, I don't even want to use it as an excuse for elimination, right? Because she did have a qualifier to prep for the elim. We saw Prohibition Legal even miss so much time and have 2 qualifiers and put forth a great effort. Galucci brings them ready to race. So clearly she's just not at her best, and he's not really confident in her ability right now. That for me is the biggest thing, is that, I mean, her own trainer is not even confident in the mare right now. So
Michaela was the only really effort I've seen from her well in the front end was probably the Claire Barton pace at Plainridge, which was a 5-horse field, short field, clearly the best, and then went to the front, no big deal. So I really have to agree that I think the second tier draw is probably a good draw for her in some sense. Going to get away okay and hopefully have some target chase. So that's the price that I will try in this race. Kevin Plouch is tuning in on YouTube, and I don't think I've ever heard Ray make a stand on a horse like that ever, except for right now. Maybe Max Contract is the lock of the weekend now. However, now he's covering his tracks by saying every other horse is live. So, all right, well, we are on to race 13. We're running long here. We're getting close to Ray Cotolo's bedtime. So, Ray, I guess we'll go to you. The $600,000 for your old Colton Gelding pace. So, please tell us why Confederate probably wins the race, but why every other horse is live as well.
I mean, the only concern I have with Confederate is, well, for one, he cut himself and then went that 48 2 mile in the Tattersall. So maybe I shouldn't be worried by the fact that he almost broke around the last turn in the elimination. I don't know what that was. It might have just been he wanted to go and Tim was trying to tell him to be more methodical about it. He threw in a weird step in the far turn. And then in the stretch, Tim had to actually go to the whip. It wasn't the kind of elimination that, represented the kind of performances that he has shown in stakes past. But, I mean, he's a classy horse. He still came out with 25 and change. He got by. I thought Stockade Sealster won a big race, all things considered, in that elimination. Going first over and then pushing through that 54 and 4 front half. And then he only lost by a length to Confederate. Looked like re-engaged and battled back to the inside to get second. So I'm kind of curious if he has anything more to offer in this final. He might be an okay price. 15 to 1 morning line is probably going to be somewhere around there. But I mean, if everything is fine with Confederate after the little hiccup in Lexington, good luck beating him. Emma was able to beat him, but even then, it was only by a half length. And It's My Show was able to beat him, and it was only by a head. So, Coach Stefanos, maybe he goes 23 and 4 final quarter and blows by him, in which case we'll be hailing to the new chief after that.
All right, Mike, you've hinted to us all day. You better not let me down now. Confederate's going to lose.
Yeah, I'm gonna try Al Ray. I loved his last 2 races. Is he as good as Confederate? Probably not. I mean, Confederate's the top horse in the sport, but we've seen what Hoosier does, and we've seen that big chalk and things like this can go down given the right circumstances. This horse was sold for over $500,000 and new connections. showed up and kicked 25-3, looked as good as he's ever looked. I think he's the one I want. If anybody's going to beat him, it's a horse that is rounding into good form. I love that race at Lexington when he kicked 25-4 and he lacked room against Cannibal. He probably should have won that spot. Then he comes back and wins the elimination against Cannibal there. I know that that's not Confederate, but if Confederate's vulnerable, I want El Rey to beat him. I think he's the only one that possibly could.
What odds you get on El Rey?
I think I don't know. I'd imagine about 7-8. I could see it because money's going to be spread around behind Confederate. He's got to be what 1-5 anyway.
In a race
1-10.
In a race like this, as a gambler, my first thought would be, God, there are so many easier situations to get a 7 or 8 to 1 shot.
But here's the thing,
to be Confederate.
I'm not looking to beat him in the win pool. Like this is where you cash bigger multis if you're trying to beat him there. That's where he's 95, 98% in multis, and that's where you get value.
I mean, he's going to be a clear second choice to me in the multis. I don't
know about that. The 1 takes money there. The 5 takes money there. The It's My Show takes money there. Even Stockade Silster might take a little bit. So I think that the money's spread around behind him.
I mean, I guess it also depends on what you're surrounding him by, because I mean, French wine might be an okay price depending on how the mare pace goes.
It doesn't matter. You beat Confederate and everything explodes. Yes.
Nah. So I've seen people
go
say
back
that.
To the okay.
You said then you see pick 4s pay $200.
Mm-hmm.
So Jacob, El Rey, that first start for the Andrew Harris barn in that elimination out there, Hoosier, and took care of business pretty well. But obviously Confederate clearly the one to knock off here.
Yeah, but I like Ray said, I kind of went back and I watched the Breeders' Crown video they put on their Facebook and their YouTube channel where they have the gate camera going around the last turn, and you get an up close look at those steps that Confederate threw in, and that was ugly on that last turn. Like, that's a legitimately near break. I mean, really nasty step by Confederate on the last turn. Like Ray said, I think he was maybe just trying to get wound up a little bit, and they were going on the last turn a little bit, and maybe threw in a nasty step, but it certainly stuck with me. I wouldn't be opposed to throwing on El Rey on top in here just because of that, getting the switch to Dexter done, gets the inside post if he can kind of stalk. That effort by Coach Stefanos, that 24-2 home last quarter, I don't know where that came from. I watched that horse all year long. Very, very good horse. Don't get me wrong. No clue where that came from. Don't expect anything close to that again this week. With that said, El Rey is the only other one I could make a case for if you're looking to beat Confederate. Cannibal, I was pretty disappointed in his effort on the front end last week in that limb. Otherwise, I would have looked at him to maybe be the one to knock off his Diamond Creek stablemate and Confederate. But El Rey's the only one I could maybe possibly make a case for.
So, Derick, if we're going to chat Coach Stefanos a little bit more, what do we make of a 24-2 kicker?
You know what? I actually watched the replay a bunch of times and started timing it myself to see if it was accurate. It's close. I mean, it might have been 24-3 instead of 24-2, but it's pretty close. I don't know. Some horses are just sprinters and other horses aren't. I don't know. Maybe everything worked out perfectly for him that day. Maybe he ate his Wheaties. I'm not quite sure.
That's crazy. 24.
Some thoughts on Confederate, as far as the the near break on the turn. One of the things that driver Tim Tetrick told me was that Hoosier Park has really tight turns compared to some of the other tracks that Confederate has been on, and and this was the tightest turns that this horse has faced, and along with the knee injury that's maybe not 100% healed, the laceration's not 100% healed, and keeping the horse in, when the horse was probably keyed up to go in a maybe slower than he'd like to be fractions. It all kind of played into the role of, him maybe almost breaking. And to me, when you have a horse like Confederate, who's perhaps not 100% his last 2 starts, and he still wins anyway, I'm thinking that he's only going to get better as the days go along, so it's more likely that he's going to be better in the final than he was in the elimination rather than regress. Because I don't really see any signs of regression. I mean, how many horses, come home in 25 and change and are regressing? In a 49-4 mile, I think it was the second fastest mile of the night behind by the Missile. I think beating Confederate's going to be a tall task. I do agree. I like the effort from El Rey last time, and I like the effort from El Rey the start before. And, I believe this horse raced well at the end of last year, too. So maybe the colder weather works well for El Rey, and that's when he can step up. Tried to make a case for Stockade Sealster because I think there's some ability there. But really, when's the last time we saw a race from him that we really felt, where, that's an impressive horse. It's been a while since we've seen that kind of big type of race. I mean, you don't want to keep taking these favorites, but I think, it's going to be hard to beat Confederate. I'd be looking at just the cold exacto of El Rey, and, if it comes in, it comes in. If not, turn the page and on to the next one.
Derick wonders why I had all this chalk on top of my TRF leaflet.
Well, John, it sounds like Murray on YouTube listening in is going to try El Rey maybe to beat Confederate, but what about for you?
Yeah, he's going to be a popular horse, and I think that, obviously I liked him in the Elim. I think you got to be intrigued at the fact that, maybe the change of scenery would do him some good, right? We saw different aged horses transition over to Andrew Harris's barn and have success. So, but this is a really tough ask, right? To be Confederate. I think if Timmy acknowledged about the turns being so tight and whatnot, don't you think he's going to have him, he's going to factor that into how he race him and when he moves him. And, I mean, Timmy's Timmy for a reason, right? So for me, we saw him get the brunt of it over at Lexington a couple starts back, and he still opened up and got the job done, right? I mean, I see no reason why he can't repeat here. Again, I don't want to. It's not about going against Chuck. It's just that he's proven that he's just clearly a notch above everybody else, right? He's lost 2 big races because of the drive, just being in bad spots, right? Timmy's acknowledged it already. He's put him in better spots since. We joke about that he's never going to lose a race all year, and since that point, like, he really hasn't. And hopefully, he gets the job done here, and hopefully, we get to see him in the FanDuel or TVG finals against some of these aged open pacers, because I think that he'd have a legit shot against them too, because he's that good of a racehorse, and I'm not going to go against him here. Redemption time for Confederate in the Breeders' Crown. He's going to get it done.
All right, race 14, the open trot, second to last race. I need another 90-second timeout. This is my great chance to once again go to Ray Cotolo to tell us about how loved by the masses and may have been 7th and 8th last week, but they're going to turn the tables in the final this week, Ray. Have at it.
I mean, maybe this is an unpopular opinion. It's not either of those horses. I have not seen a single race from Al Raja 1 where I think I give him the Breeders' Crown now, in all honesty. None of these horses have exhibited the same turn of foot, the same ease of motion, just the way in which he's able to travel through gears and then push the ground underneath. I don't know how anyone beats Al Raja 1. I don't even think there's a universe where Logan Park does what he did on the lead and somehow Al Raja 1 isn't able to get there. He's a freak, and I don't think that the 9 post hurts him at all. I'm lost to see how he loses this race. I'm not a big fan of Southwind Tyrion in this spot, just because he was supposed to go by Logan Park off a trip like that, and he didn't. But also, that looked like a really good stretch drive by Dougie McNair, where it was almost like he was slowing things down to a 16th of a mile just to get a little extra breather. And then once that passing lane opened, he re-engaged with Logan Park, and that might have been the winning move. I don't know. But Southwind Tyrion was second to his stablemate, was okay. The only horse that I have some interest in as a long price for the underneath spots, Pretender one of these days is going to hit the ticket, and he's going to be a big price doing it. I thought when they were coming into the stretch there for home, I thought this horse was going to fly onto the super, and then he hung and finished 5th. But maybe 13 days after, he's on Lasix now. Maybe he gets it. Maybe he gets up. Maybe that's the only piece that's missing, is he's got a little blood in the lungs. Got to clean that up. All good as new. Patch it up. He'll be like 50-1, maybe at the trifecta superfecta. I really like how this guy travels. He has plenty of speed in his holster. It just seems like his brain hasn't really been able to figure out how to make his legs move. But that's not going to be enough to beat Al Raja 1. I don't think anyone has what it takes to beat Al Raja 1.
Jacob, I will go on the record. Al Raja 1 is the most likely winner of this entire weekend, more than Confederate.
Yeah, I agree. And not at all concerned about post 9. It's not like he's a horse that's really going to be going for the lead in the early stages anyway. He just kind of lets that race come to him. And then he's just simply faster than these other horses in the stretch. Its Academic seems to kind of tailed off the last couple months or so. Won a big race here in the Caesars Trotting Classic, actually equaled that all-time track record for the trotters here in the Caesars Trot. With that said, after Dayton finished third there, I won a huge mile there, and the last two efforts have just been pretty dull from Its Academic. Just seems like he's tailed off quite a bit. Pretender, I agree. He won back here on September 15th. He was huge that night, 51-4, right down the road. Looked like he was going to be really live going into that Caesars Trot. Had to do a lot of hard work in the Caesars Trot, kind of set the stage for Its Academic. With that said, the two starts prior, or since rather, just been okay for Pretender. I agree. Al Raja won. He's probably a single in here. I just think he's much, much better than these horses.
John? Who has muted himself?
He's just going to say Al Raja won.
It is going to be tough to beat Al Raja one, though. I will give it that. I think that, Its Academic. I think we're talking about him tailing off. I wouldn't say he's tailed off. I just think that he's had to take on the likes of Al Raja one. I think he's had some bad posts in some of those other races. And, it was an elimination drive last time out. It was first time back on Lasix again, right? I mean, we didn't see him put up forth any effort in the Al Raja next. And maybe it's by virtue of because he just can't function without Lasix whatsoever. So, he might be able to bounce back with a big effort, but obviously I think a lot of people saw if you're going to play exactas, why not the late Hanover? It was the fast final quarter of the night, of the evening that night. That was a big effort from him. He's got some talent. I never really thought that he could maybe at least be up there with some of the top ones. He has a real position to work with. He might be able to sneak in underneath for the exacta. I really liked that effort last time.
Mike, I'm pretty sure delayed Hanover, when still with Okas Fonstedt 2 years ago, I think he was at least the morning line favorite in Hamiltonian. I think he actually went off the post time favorite too.
Not sure about that. Post time favorite? You said?
Not against Captain Corey.
No, that's right. He was the second or third choice, but he was the morning line favorite. Yeah, that's right.
I don't mind him, John, either. I have him pick third in my picks. I do think that he will be finishing. I'm going to try Logan Park because nobody else is, because while he's not as classy as a Rajawan, and that's true. A Rajawan sort of shows up by appointment only, and has to rough it here from a tough post. I mean, there's going to be things against him enough to make me think the way Logan Park's raced, and he's popping those miles of 50-3 at Mohawk. That is not easy to do. He's been dominant too, and then he shows up here. The fact that they shipped says a lot. The fact that was able to dominate another elimination says a lot to me. He's probably not classy enough to beat the favorite, but I don't mind taking a shot. I mean, I'm looking at trying to beat a lot of these favorites, and he's a horse that's going to get the front again. There's a lot of horses in here that probably aren't going to pressure him enough. If he sneaks away, he might get be tough to catch, just like he was last time. May not be good enough, but I'll try him.
Derick?
Yeah, I don't like Logan Park at all.
You don't like anything I like. It's like Thomas on these round tables. When he just rips everything I say too.
What does Logan Park be? Has Logan Park won a stakes race like ever?
Well, he just won the elimination last week. Was that a stakes race or no? I wonder.
Elimination.
He's made 785,000. I know.
I think he won a
in
super
good form.
final.
He's won 11 races this year.
I think he has won a super final.
Yeah, but it's probably been 2 years since his last meaningful win. Unless
But he's as good as he's ever been. He's as fast as he's ever been.
Derek. Every win is meaningful when you share it with friends.
Okay. Well,
and really, what horse does he look does he look worse than in the race? Besides the 9 is the only horse that looks like a monster compared to everyone else looks the same.
I find it interesting. This is a good useless fact. Mike has loved the elim winner 3 years in a row out of this. You not remember the It's Academic is going to beat Ecurie debate in 2021?
It's Academic was second in that race.
So, and he raced great. He
was like 30-1 too.
The bottom line for me is, and listen, I don't love It's Academic in this race. I don't love South Venturian in this race, but you know what? I like them better than I like Logan Park, and I think the price is probably similar. On all three. Close to. I don't know. I don't think there's. I happen to agree with Ray. I don't think there's any way Al Raja one loses this race. I don't care what the trip is. I don't care if he gets parked a mile. I think he's just going to keep coming and blow by. I think he's the only legitimate, elite level horse in this race. I think It's Academic is a very good horse, and everyone else is just a good horse. If I was going to take a shot with a long shot underneath, not on top, I might take a shot right on my cage. He's adding Lasix here, and he's adding Lasix for a barn that really doesn't add Lasix on their horses. I think other than Southwind, Tyrion, and Up Your Deo, I don't think there's a horse in Aki's barn that has Lasix. So for him to add Lasix to the horse, to me, I think that's a meaningful move. And he's 20 to 1 on the morning line. It's going to end up being a huge price. I might take a shot with him underneath, but I'll Roger one on top.
All right, final race. We'll wrap ourselves up here. The open pace. Jacob, kick us off with, I don't know, want to argue the featured race of the night, second feature behind the Confederate race. I don't know. Either way, By the Missile, Tattoo Artist, they were the limb winners. They're likely to take a lot of money here.
Yeah, and you can't argue with how good Tattoo Artist has been the last couple of months, starting with that Canadian Pace Derby win. He tracked down By the Missile there late in the stretch to get the win in the final there. And then pretty much every start since has gotten to the lead. They've just kind of turned him loose on the lead. He's gotten fractions that go his way, and then you're just not going to catch him when he gets to the front with some cheap fractions. The same thing happened in the Elim. By the Missile, I've been waiting for him to kind of take that next step. It's hard to say that with a horse that's won 9 of 13, but with a mile like the Canadian Pace Derby, I didn't expect him to lose that race, and he's just had a few of those. The Dayton Pace Derby where he opted to just sit in from third instead of going and being the one to take on Tattoo Artist. I thought that was pretty interesting prior to Lexington. So I did put Tattoo Artist on top. I think a price to put with him, I put a buck bet Hanover there. This is a horse I kind of keep waiting on. Dexter Dunn back in the bike here for Andrew Harris. I was really impressed by that second place effort to Tattoo Artist in the Elim. Got home in 26 and change, shipped loose late there. I thought he was better in the Alaraj. He's a horse that has had some issues staying on the track this year. I'm finally getting some consistency going again. I think he's coming in this race in good form. I think if you go Tattoo Artist on top, maybe you put a buck bet Hanover second. But beyond that, I struggled getting by Tattoo Artist.
Mike?
Well, I think everyone knows where I'm going, and that's, Derek's not going to like this horse, and I don't really give a shit. But I'm going Charlie May, and because I love the horse, and yeah, I mean, he's probably going to really have to step up to win this race because Tattoo Artist has been really good, but he ended up first up last time, and they're going to change the shoes this week on him, and he does need a trip, but with the two favorites lined up against each other, they could go crazy a little bit here, and if that does happen, and By the Missile and Tattoo Artist hook up early, he could get a trip, and I don't mind the post. I think he's going to end up probably in that second flight, and he's proven capable against these horses. He's made $2 million. He likes the racetrack, and he's going to be a price. I mean, the last time I told you to play him, he was 30 to 1. He won the race. So I know I bet him that night. He's that price is probably reflective of his chances of winning the race. Tattoo Artist is probably supposed to win the race. He's been the sharpest horse for a good while now, and I think he probably wins, but we'll try Charlie May on top.
All right, Derek, rebut it and tell us why Charlie May has no chance.
I actually don't mind Charlie May in this race as a play, because you're going to get the right price on him, and he's proven capable of winning this kind of race. And, and I'm doing everyone who likes Charlie May a favor by not picking him because he never races well when I pick him. Never. I mean, he's like dead as can be when I pick him. So I'm not playing him here. I don't like Tattoo Artist either, so there's a surprise where I'm not going on the favorite. If I was going to take one of the two favorites, I would take By the Missile over Tattoo Artist. I think he's been, while the lines look much better on Tattoo Artist, I think the times that Tattoo Artist has beaten By the Missile, I think By the Missile's had legitimate excuses. He was drawn outside of him in the Dayton Derby, and then he set way too fast the fractions in the Canadian Pacing Derby. So I think he has legitimate excuses for why he's lost. So if I was going to play one of those two, it would be By the Missile. I went with Alleyway Hanover. I really liked his elimination race last week. This is a horse that doesn't like to take any air at all. Only races well off a trip. And, he stayed on pretty well last week, better than I expected him to stay on. I understand going in that I'm going to need a trip for him to win, that he's not going to, obviously second tier is always hard to go right to the front anyway. But I understand I'm going to need a trip, but I also know that I'm going to get 4-1, 5-1, 6-1 range on this horse, and I know he can win this race.
John?
I wish Alleywag, drew on the gate. I think that obviously, like I said, I've said it earlier, I just don't like that second tier. But I think he's a horse who could sit and play the role of upsetter. But I wish he drew on the gate. Kind of in agreement with Derick, though. I mean, Tattoo Artist has been so good. We've never seen Lou sitting behind him. I think By the Missile looked really, really sharp last week. Like he just looked, pretty sound. He looked sharp. That was, he did some racing in that elimination, right? He can go faster for a horse of his caliber, but I thought he looked pretty good. I like the body language of Yannick. I like the body language of the horse. We look back at the Canadian Pacing Derby elimination. The way he won that elimination, I had so much confidence in any horse going into a final. I thought that there was no scenario he was going to get beat, and he did. And then we've seen Tattoo Artist kind of take over as the best H pacer in the sport. But I really like the way By the Missile's going to that final. I think you're going to get a better price on the horse, and it's not long ago he was favored against Tattoo Artist, so I think that I like that elimination going to that final, and I'm going to side with him. I'm going to go against.
Don't they got to hook up at some point though? Don't they have to hook up?
And yeah, they will have to hook up at some point, but I still think that By the Missile, the talent's there. I think that he's going to be fine to to hook up with him, and even if they do, some of those other horses are going to have to do their best also to keep up.
I think a key is going to be, what does Chase H. Hanover do? Is he going to gun out of there and try to, set some crazy fractions, or at least push By the Missile and Tattoo Artist a little bit early, because they're clearly going to push off the gate. If that happens, that can, change the way this race goes.
Well, Ray, last but not, well, actually, I don't know about that. Ray, Murray on YouTube says, just for you, Tarazi.
I mean, I wish of all the races that I looked at, I spent the longest on this one because in a way I felt defeated. It's because it was by this point I realized, oh God, I have this much chalk on top. That's not good.
That's good, Ray.
But then I felt better that I had a bunch of bombs underneath the chalk, so I feel like there's some chances at things going awry. But then I see a horse like Tattoo Artist, and I watch a horse like Tattoo Artist race, and I see the way that he wins the Canadian Pacing Derby against By the Missile, who is supposed to be what I think he's supposed to be, and he wasn't what he was supposed to be, so it made me very angry. And Tattoo Artist, one that, in all honesty, you watch that Canadian Pacing Derby over and over and over and over and over again. He's not supposed to win that race from that spot. And the reason he won that race from that spot, I think, is because of class. I can't amount it to anything else beyond that. By the Missile's a good horse. He's a 4-year-old. Tattoo Artist is an experience edge on him as a 6-year-old. And I mean, I even if By the Missile went too fast on the front, I don't know. I don't see how this race unfolds. I just feel like I'm going to be disappointed and see Tattoo Artist win as a favorite and then just kind of go like, yay. But I would be more interested if one of these favorites lost. I don't see that being possible. I wish Tarasi was coming into this race better. If Charlie May wins, it'll be my favorite race of the night, and I'll put down my Nintendo Switch.
Mine too.
But I envision they're going to be getting to the half, and I'm going to be booting up my Nintendo Switch and playing a selection of my favorite classic games on the library, including Mario and The Legend of Zelda.
It's almost Animal Crossing Halloween time.
It is in fact Animal Crossing Halloween time, and around the time they hit the 3/4, I may be putting on my island renovation cap and digging some trenches because I'll know what's going to happen in that stretch drive, and most likely it's going to be Tattoo Artist wins.
Are we done?
I mean, I think Tattoo Artist By the Missile should be intriguing battle. It's kind of, I don't even remember anymore how many races we've discussed. Whatever race I said earlier that it's the price situation, I just think Tattoo Artist is going to take way more money than By the Missile, and I think By the Missile provides some value based on that. So I'll take By the Missile, but as always, we'll be rooting for our dear friend Don Tiger and Mike. Hopefully you cash big on Charlie May. But that is 12 races for Championship Breeders' Crown Weekend out at Hoosier Park this Friday, October 27th, and Saturday, October 28th. 15 races each night, 6 p.m. special first post time each night. I don't know, Jacob, anything I'm missing there as we wrap up?
No, just looking forward to it. It's one of those things that felt like it was a long way away all season long here at Hoosier Park, and then all of a sudden it's Breeders' Crown Week, and we've been putting in the effort, and hopefully we put on a great event, and hopefully the races live up to it. I know, 2020 it was a little bit of a unique year. The year we did have the Breeders' Crown last, having no fans here, that was fairly strange, but the racing lived up to it. Hopefully we get the same kind of racing we got in 2020, just with people here to enjoy it. That would be ideal.
Derek, I'm sure we get a DRF newsletter coming out here for Breeders' Crown weekend.
Yeah, I've been working on it for the past 2 hours during this, thing here. So if you see me looking away, I was looking at my screen working on it. It should be a good newsletter. A lot of good content in there. We'll have picks from some of the people who are on this broadcast here and a bunch of others. I did full card analysis for it. We have a special promotion on DRF bets, 5% rebate on all the races Friday and Saturday, and tons of content, live video, analysis videos, everything you can ask for. DRF.com/harness, and hopefully I'll see some of you there live. I know I'll see Jacob.
Derek would have only had to work an hour and a half on it, but I had to send him 400 extra words on my column for this month that I'm sure he's seething through with a fine-tooth comb.
There's two locks on Breeders' Crown Week. It's one that Mike is going to pick Charlie Knight, and two that Ray is going to send whatever he's going to send late.
It's true. I had to do 40 press kits that totaled 55 pages that'll be available on the Hambletonian.com website with all stories on all the horses that are competing.
Well, Ray, Derek spent 2 hours working on the newsletter. I've been spending my time watching Sam Houston football try to get their first FBS win and watching the Indiana Pacers. 143 points, most points ever by a team on opening night.
Wait, they beat the Kings tonight?
No, Ray. The Kings scored 144 and beat them.
Okay. My text didn't go through. I was trying to tell John that the Kings were a good bet tonight, but alas, my phone has been acting up. I am being censored by the mainstream media, which is why I have to let everyone know to follow me on X instead for all my raw, unfiltered thoughts that they don't want you to know, and sometimes I don't even want you to know, but I have this compulsion to share that I think is hurting me. So
if
that's
you don't
on
know
the
what time it is, follow Ray. He'll tell you.
I'll only tell you the day of the week. You ask me what time, you're on your own.
John, will we see you on the Mohawk broadcast Saturday during these Breeders' Crown races, kind of looking to the side, watching both?
Yeah, I'll be working Friday, Saturday night. I'm praying that the races spread out. I'm praying that Mohawk doesn't overlap with, Hoosier.
They usually show them on their feeds. You'll probably get lucky.
Yeah, so that's my biggest concern is that I don't want them to have to overlap. So yeah, that would be ideal for me, and I'm looking forward to. Obviously, can't sit in the luxury of my home and watch all these eliminations or be there in person. Unfortunately, just the timing didn't really align, but I'll be tuning in big time.
Mike, I'm sure we got plenty of content on Yahoo Picks for the weekend.
Yeah, NahooPicks.com. My picks will be in the racing forum, thanks to Derek. He has some faith in me, even though he doesn't act like it on this thing. Rod Adams Jr., Kevin Plaucha hit their thoughts on the website. Plus, I'll have my usual Mohawk stuff. We'll have some other racetracks all weekend. Our usual stuff every day. Go to NahooPicks.com. Lots of good Hoosier stuff and lots of other things. Rosecroft, Meadowlands, Meadows, everywhere.
Well, as always, racing fans, we thank you for tuning in. As usual, the Breeders' Crown show is always a little lengthy, but, I think we gave you some good information, hopefully. These 12 championship races, a lot of guaranteed pools, a lot of great stuff going on track. If you get a chance to get out there to Hoosier Park, we will thank producer Craig tonight for taking care of things for us.
Thanks, Craig.
Well as for you for tuning in, and we hope that you have the best of success this weekend in your wagering endeavors out at Hoosier Park, and we'll talk to you next time here on this special podcast, which, again, we thank In the Money Media and Caesars Entertainment for their sponsorship of, and good night.